What's up, everybody? Say what's up as you come in. It is Friday and we are live, guys. Live and alive. I know it's late. It is late. But I wanted to work late today, so I got off a little late. And I didn't even work a whole day. But I had to work on the project, and at the end of the day, I had to do what I had to do. So, had to go in, work on the project. Didn't have to be there long. Probably was there about 5 hours, was it? Maybe 4. No, it was actually 5. I'm actually lying. It was 5 hours. Longer than what I expected. But work projects are like that. Those of you guys that work, you know that already. So, hey, it is what it is. I was like, oh, Lord, can I have a pass today? And the Lord was like, no, you cannot. So, here I am. So, with that being said, I hope you guys are having a great Friday tonight. That heater is loud. Y'all probably can't hear it, but I can. I hope you guys are having a great Friday tonight, today, thus far. My Friday's been cool. It's been pretty relaxing. And with that being said, guys, we are back. Cozy Corner TV live. Let me read to you what's up on the menu for tonight. I'm going to try to be as quick as possible as I can for you guys. I even shortened one of my clips because it was kind of long. And I was like, no, 24 minutes is a little steep. For a Friday Night Live anyway. So, President Trump's approval rating and the radical left's attack on Elon Musk. Bill O'Reilly is covering that. Shout out to you, Bill O'Reilly. If you guys get a channel, go watch Bill O'Reilly. Yes, I know he can be controversial, but he's what we call an OG in the game. So, hey, you got to give respect where respect's due, you know? Next up, U.S. President Donald Trump addresses educational event before signing executive orders in Washington, D.C. Shout out to A&I News. They have 7.73 million subscribers. I cover a decent amount of things by them, so shout out to you guys. President Trump did a speech where he addressed the educational system, the federal part of it, and how it's pretty much coming to an end. You know, he talked about it a little bit, so we're going to go over that. Trump calls Canada a nasty negotiator. Comments on election. So yeah, we're gonna get a little bit into this whole like Donald Trump has endorses, you know, a liberal or Democrat, whatever you would like to say. But when it pertains to Canada's election, which by the way, Canada is calling this foreign election interference on behalf of our president. So I mean, hey, Donald Trump. I mean, I'm honest both ways. You guys know that I'm going to look at both sides of it. Like, I love my country. I love our president. I've served. I'm going to love any president. So somebody's probably like, you love Joe Biden. It's like, in a sense, sure, because I love my country. But nonetheless, I don't like what President Trump did when it comes to Canada. I just have to be transparent about that. And the fact that he called out the conservative because the conservative was in the lead by 35 points in the poll. And the minute President Trump said something about the conservative candidate in Canada, it seems now that the liberals are leading. And I got to be honest, I don't like it. I don't like it. I don't like what it's giving. If I'm going to be transparent, you know, it's and I get it. I know some people could be like, come on, kid, you should be in support of your country. Like, what are you talking about being upset with President Trump? And I'm like, dude, at the end of the day, we're America, right? There's nothing wrong with a little bit of friendly competition, right? If we are the best of the best. So I don't see the problem with Canada being the best that it can be. Like, I don't see it. I'm not intimidated by that, and I wouldn't think anybody was. But, and I'm not saying President Trump's trying to build an empire, you know, but sometimes it's giving that. When you have people reacting and they're saying, oh, President Trump's trying to make every country poor. Well, I know he's not doing that because there are countries that are grotesquely putting tariffs on us and have in the past, and they don't even amount to the tariffs that President Trump is trying to put on them. So I know that that's not the case, but still, I felt like Pierre would be a great candidate for Canada. If you guys pay attention to Canadian politics at all, Canada is the country that probably watches my channel the second most. So I try to keep up with Canadian politics. I think PRP is a great choice for them. They seem to be going through a lot of what America's been dealing with. And I think Pierre's good for them. You know, even if you listen to him talk, he he sounds just like Donald Trump did in the American elections. And some people might not like that. Some people might say, hey, he's stealing Donald Trump's tactics, whatever. He's in another country and he's running, so I don't necessarily care about that. If he admires President Trump and he feels like his way is the way to go because it'll be successful for the country, I can't deny him that. But I don't like Carney, he's sus. He's sus. That's all I'm gonna say. Like, he's giving Joe Biden vibes. I'm just gonna put it like that. Then we're gonna switch gears a little bit to AV Mind. Shout out to you. He has 59.7 thousand subscribers. He actually reacted to a podcast that I watched that Jordan Peterson did. But I think it's an hour and 52 minutes. It might be over 2 hours. And he is with, is he still with James here? I believe he is. Yeah, James Basili. So the gentleman behind BlackBerry. That's who Jordan Peterson is having this conversation with, one of the co-founders of BlackBerry. And they are talking about Mark Carney as prime minister. Now, it's no secret that Jordan Peterson is not the biggest fan of Mark Carney, but they go into a little bit more detail as to why him being prime minister for Canada actually will not work out for the country's best interest. And then we're going to actually jump over to The Simple Investor. Shout out to him. He has 29.8 thousand subscribers. I really like the way he reacts to his content. It almost seems like he's in a boardroom when he does it. And I just want to pay attention to how he covered what went down with the transfer of power between Justin Trudeau and Mark Carney. Because I think he covers this immaculately. And the reason why I say that is because it sounds so much like what happened in the United States. I'm almost like, dude, who's in whose pocket at this point? Like, it's crazy because he talks about the fact that there was no official election, and like Justin Trudeau just mentioned his stepping down. Mark Carney kind of gets voted in by liberals, not the people, and steps. So I thought he does a good job at explaining to us what actually happened as to why Mark Carney even got into place to begin with. I've watched a couple of people kind of cover it. I like the way he does it and from the standpoint he does it, so we'll go over that short clip. And then we are actually going to end the night with a Christian clip like we always do, but it's actually from someone other than Cliff tonight. It is from, let's see.
What inspired you to wear the mask?
Yeah, I thought this was Nicholas's channel. Nicholas Bowling. So in case you guys are not familiar with Nicholas, he has currently 822. I'm like, dude, I'm so tired. I'm like, why can't I talk right now? I'm having a brain fart. 822,000 subscribers on his channel. He's a YouTube Christian content creator. So every night I end my live with a Christian clip from somebody. Usually it's Cliff Buell. Shout out to you, Cliff. Most nights I end it with him because I just love the way he covers his Christian content. He does it in YouTube short form for the most part. He does podcasts too, but his YouTube short form, if you guys want to learn more about Jesus, not too familiar with Jesus, curious about Jesus, I think Cliff's channel is a great spot just because of the way he covers it and in the format he does it in. Nicholas Bowling, very much the same way. Sometimes does long-standing videos and or podcast kind of settings. And also he goes out into the streets. Sometimes he's at gay pride parades, interacting with people of other faiths. So because of that reason, I was like, you know what? He kind of coincides with Cliff. I want to keep this where I have Christian content creators kind of interacting with other people because I like for you guys to see that reaction. So Nicholas Bowling is who we're going to be ending our live stream with tonight. The YouTube Christian content creator, Nicholas. And that's how we end our live streams every night, guys. So with that being said, welcome to Cozy Corner TV, ladies and gentlemen. I'm your host, Karen Smith. Call me Q. And we on the corner. We on the corner, y'all. And it's a Friday night. And some of y'all are out and some of y'all are not. And I'm happy for y'all that are here. So I've read what is on the menu. We're going to get to looking at, dissecting, reacting to some of this news. First up, President Trump's approval rating and the radical left's attack on Elon Musk. Bill O'Reilly is going to walk us through some of this. Let's take a look.
Bill O'Reilly here. Welcome to the No Spin News, March 20th, 2025. Stand up for your country. I am in West Palm Beach, Florida. Not a bad place to be. in the middle of March. I am down here, as I explained last night, to help Joe Namath, the legendary football quarterback, with his benefit that is this evening. And Joe has become a friend, and he's a very good guy, and the cause to help football players with brain injuries is top-notch in my opinion. You can help Joe at joenamath.org. Anyway, the political scene remains very intense, as you know. Nobody is backing off the hatred, and that's not a good thing. Tribalism has seized control of the entire nation. And I'll deal with that in a final thought. I'm trying to break this, by the way. I'm not a tribe guy.
Responsible gun owners
I try
must
not
know
to
the
be
law
either.
and when they carry their gun. But gun laws can be difficult to find.
I try not
And
to be
you know
either.
that. You're not here watching me or listening to me.
Try to
If
be
you want
fair.
ideology, we just won't give it to you. All right? We are a fact-based broadcast, and that is the subject of this evening's talking points because there is a new poll out. Fox News poll. Fox News is, they don't do well presidentially. Socially, I don't know. This is 994 registered voters, fair sample.
Yes, let's give them a little bit. Come on, Bill. Let's give them a little bit of the benefit of the doubt. So for you guys that don't know mainstream media well, I tend to not watch mainstream media because they don't tell the truth. But if you do watch it, I would say Fox News is probably about as good as you're gonna get because MSNBC is just, most of them are kind of like a circus, if I'm honest with you. They're not telling the truth. They're arguing, they're going back and forth. They're talking over each other. CNN has moments, although usually the best part about CNN is watching Scott Jennings kind of get beat up on. Shout out to you, Scott. I mean, he tries, but they just come after him every time. But, Bill, I'm not going to say he's being unfair, but if you're going to do mainstream media, Fox News is probably the best you're going to get, so that's what we got to deal with, guys.
And they're asking about President Trump and Congress. Here is question number one. Do you approve the job Trump is doing as president? 49% yes, disapprove 51%. Now that...
Okay, so this is a poll that Bill read off. Do you approve of the job Trump is doing as president? Approval rate, 49%. Disapproval rate, 51%. Bill recorded this yesterday, so this is as of 23 hours ago. Okay, so the approval rating has dropped slightly. It's dropped slightly. That's not shocking to me. President Trump is doing a lot. He's doing a lot that is causing a lot of confusion and a lot of fear. So the approval rating dropping some is not shocking to me. It's also not that concerning to me either. Within 2% of one another. I might be a little bit more concerned if the approval rating was, let's say 41. Then I would be, I wouldn't like that number too much. Over if it was 38%, I'd be a little bit more worried. But, someone could say, well, the disapproval rating is over half. Yeah, but it's like 1% over half. And just a couple of days ago, these numbers were flipped. So when you think about the fact that, and we'll cover that tonight, that he just made a recent announcement about dismantling the Board of Education, that's not going to make a lot of people happy. So the approval rating is going to go down. Usually whenever President Trump signs an executive order, the internet goes crazy, so that can affect the approval rating, right? So we still got to let these things pan out, guys. We can't jump to conclusions.
That is a tie for Trump's all-time approval rating in this poll, which was April 2020, 5 years ago. He approved at 49% then. It's a good number for Donald Trump, particularly because of all the tariffs and all of the chaos and the media continuing to attack him. 49% is a good number for him. You should be happy with that. And not many people...
and really, you would think it would be lower than that. That's why when Bill says, like, it's a good number for Donald Trump, I know exactly what he means, because the media has basically told us we're in a trade war. So now they're saying trade war. You have things being said by China. You have him trying to work out the thing with Russia and Ukraine. You have the interaction with him and Zelensky in the Oval Office, which people didn't like. They don't like his cabinet. They're attacking every single thing that he's doing and every EO executive order he's putting out. So if I'm honest, it's higher than what I thought it would be. 49% is pretty high for President Trump. I'm thinking it would be lower than that. You would think it would be based on the things you hear in the news. So when Bill O'Reilly says that's high for President Trump, I know exactly what it means. Give me a second, guys. Let me see what's going on with this audio here.
For Donald Trump, particularly because of all the tariffs and all of the chaos and the media continuing to attack him. 49% is a good number for him. You'd be happy with that.
Should be happy.
And not many people are in the middle on this. So that's the second question. By party, 92% of Republicans approve of Donald Trump. And I'm going to deal with some of the 8% a little while that don't. Okay, and 90.
This number is insane right here. I'm going to read this for you guys because YouTube might have flipped it around. This says Donald Trump's approval rating. Donald Trump's approval by party. So this is Democrat, Republican. The Republicans' approval rate of Donald Trump is 92%. The Democrats' disapproval rate of Donald Trump is 92%. Yo, I'm cooked. The fact that these numbers are both 92% in the opposite direction is hilarious to me.
2% of Democrats disapprove. In fact, he drives many of those people absolutely insane.
Yeah, he does.
That is tribalism. So there's no wiggle room here. Trump good, Trump bad.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm kind of like that. I have to be honest with everybody, and I always am. I'm a black and white kind of guy. I don't not live in the gray zone.
Yeah.
But I understand that no president is perfect. Donald Trump makes mistakes, and when he does, I point them out, and he doesn't like that, but that's not my concern. My concern is you.
Yeah.
But overall, if I'm comparing Donald Trump in March 2025 to Joe Biden in March 2024, there's no comparison.
Yeah, no, there's not.
As far as the health of the nation is concerned.
No, not at all.
And Biden's
The health of the nation, people.
even
There's no
explain how
comparison.
bad he was. It'd take me 3 hours. Trump is making some mistakes, but his overall goal to be fiscally responsible, to bring more jobs, more prosperity, and to calm things down overseas is good.
Yeah.
Okay, but 92% of the Democrats don't see it that way.
92%.
The next question is Congress.
Come on,
Do you approve of
Democrats.
the job Republicans in Congress should do it? 55% say yes.
Do you approve of the job Republicans in Congress are doing? Okay. 43% do approve. 55% disapprove. And 2% say they don't know. So, I don't know. Maybe they fall asleep during Senate hearings and they don't watch the news. But 2% apparently don't know what's going on. Okay, so do you approve of the Republicans' job in Congress right now? We have a 55% disapproval rating. So 55% do not approve of what the Republicans are doing in Congress right now. When we have 43 that do. This number does not worry me that much. I'm not sure what Bill's going to say about this number. I'm not that worried about 43 to 55. It is over 10%, so it's slightly concerning. But when you see the Democratic Party and you see then almost the entire party, almost, because it's not all of them, but almost the entire party in objection to what Chuck Schumer did when he voted for the bill to pass, the spending bill, they just look crazy right now. So we know that the Democrats were willing to shut down the government. We know that they are upset that Chuck Schumer voted for the bill and he didn't get the government shut down. We know that they have openly said that they're mad at him because he didn't shut down the government. Like, we know this about the Democrats already. So when I see a 55% disapproval rating and I think about Congress, I'm like, I mean, that's not shocking to me. 43%, again, for President Trump. This is a good number, considering that the media is slaughtering him in every single move that he makes right now. So I would say 43% is not bad for President Trump. The 55% disapproval rating, I'm really not too concerned about it when I have Democrats saying that they wanted to shut down the government. So the 55% is not that surprising to me.
No, I'm sorry. Correct that. 55% say no. 43% say yes. All right. Nobody likes Congress these days. There are a bunch of pinheads in there. You know that. Not everyone, but, they don't get things done the way they should. On the Democratic side, only 30% of Americans approve of the Democrats in Congress. That's because they're mean.
Okay, so now they're asking about the Democratic side. So they asked about the Republicans. So this says, do you approve of the job Democrats in Congress are doing? Now look at these. Now these numbers are staggering. 66% people say no, they are not okay with what the Democrats are doing in Congress. Okay, so that should be a note for the Democrats that they have to change their tune. So with all the videos they've come out with, Bill O'Reilly just covered this 23 hours ago, with all the tactics and all the things Hakeem Jeffries is getting online and saying in defense of everybody, and the way certain people are painting pictures, you have a 66% disapproval rating of what the Democrats are doing in Congress. And then you have a 30% approval rating. This is much more concerning to me. So the Republicans have 55% disapproval, 43% approval. But the Democrats have 66 disapproval, 30 approval. Yeah, this number is staggering right here. This is a ridiculous number. You have well over half the people saying whatever the Democrats are doing in Congress, if anything, we don't like it. At least, and this is 66%, right? So for those of us who like math, we can take the 6 and we can round the other 6 up to a 7, right? Okay, so at this point, at least 7 people out of 10 people would say, I don't like what the Democrats are doing in Congress. I think that's concerning to me. And this is why I keep saying the Democrats are a bit tone deaf. I'm saying a bit being gracious, but a bit tone deaf to what's going on.
And they're dominated by radical leftists like Ocasio-Cortez, Bernie Sanders, Elizabeth Warren. They dominate.
Yep.
Because the media loves them. They get the airtime. 66% don't like the job Democrats are doing in Congress. It's a big number.
Yeah.
All right, it's 11% higher than the Republicans. The Democratic Party's in big trouble. Finally, do you approve of the job J.D. Vance is doing as vice president? Approve 45, disapprove 53. That's nothing.
That's crazy. Okay, so do you approve of the job J.D. Vance is doing as vice president? Okay, so we got a 53% disapproval rate and a 45% approval rate. Okay, so for J.D. Vance, being who J.D. Vance is, right, and what he's done in the Senate before he got to the White House, I would say that this is a good number for him. 45% is good for J.D. Now, we're talking about this specific administration. We're not talking about anybody else. We're talking about President Trump and J.D. Vance. I think for J.D. Vance, considering that he is a millennial, and most generations that are older than millennials think that we are a very entitled generation. Now, he has his haters. J.D. Vance has plenty of people who are like, I can't stand him. I see it in the comments all the time. But 45% for the time he's spent in the government before he was president, what he's done so far, and most of this is going to be a lot of people reacting to speeches they've seen him do, like his last speech when he went to the EU and he basically dropped that bomb on them about censorship, when he was at the CPAC conference, and he talked about abortion and how he liked the fact that now the people have the power and now we have to start looking at babies as blessings and not inconveniences. Of course, that's going to be controversial, especially with people who are far, far left. So if you take this into consideration, right, it's not like we're watching JD write EOs, all right, or pass any laws. So they're going really off of what they're hearing him say, what his beliefs are, the way they've seen him interact. Probably some of President Zelensky interaction in the Oval Office, which was pretty funny. Good TV, as President Trump said, right? So I don't think 45% is horrible for JD Vance. 53% disapproval rating. I mean, over half. Is he our youngest vice president? I think JD Vance is our youngest. Chat. What y'all know about these politics? Is JD Vance our youngest vice president? Is he America's youngest vice president? Let me see what y'all know about y'all politics. Y'all don't know about this stuff. Let me look this up. I think he is, though. Let me check. No, he's the second. Okay, he's the second youngest vice president. Because John C. Breckinridge, who was 36 when he took office, in 1857. That was a long time ago. But yeah, so JD Vance is second because JD Vance, when he was running 39, I think he's 40 now, but he might have been 40 when he was running. And then John C. Breckinridge, he was 36, so he would have been, 4 years JD's junior. So yeah, JD Vance is a pretty young vice president. The second youngest vice president in history. He's a millennial. He's pretty outspoken. He's going to say what's on his mind. He's not afraid to curse, which doesn't sit well with a lot of people. So, just being a millennial and kind of watching our generation be in the White House is pretty hilarious to me. So, I think 53% is expected. I think and I'm being fair in this grading because I don't dislike JD Vance, but I know he's young, he has a interracial family. He says what he wants, curses, pretty blunt, pretty straightforward. He's a little controversial for some people. Mind you, he's also more conservative than our president. And now some of you might not believe this, but this is actually true about JD Vance. He is more conservative than Donald Trump. And the reason why I know that is because the way that he talks about his faith. So if he's going to lead his life and most of his decisions, and he's going to look at life through the scope of him being a Christian, he's most certainly more conservative than President Trump.
Fair. It's 2 months. Vance is VP. It's just not fair.
Yes.
So let's let the man breathe a little bit. Let's see what he has. I'm sure he'll be tasked with some things, but that's just off the topic. That's just an emotional vote, doesn't mean anything.
Right, an emotional vote. And that's exactly where I kind of landed at, because I said, keep in mind, they're going off of his speeches, things they've heard him say, because it's not like he's passing laws and in there writing EOs, or President Trump is letting him lead press conferences necessarily like from the Oval Office. Like JD's not doing that type of stuff right now. He's just really doing like a lot of I guess you could say marketing for the Republicans in a way where it seems like, hey, the conservatives have it figured out right now. So guys, keep paying attention, because we actually are listening to the heartbeat of the people and the Democrats are not. That's kind of what I get when JD Vance goes out there. So yeah, when Bill says it's not fair, I would say sure, young guy hasn't done a lot as far as in the public eye. And they're not really letting him breathe. They're just kind of like, oh, he's young and he says what he wants. No, it's kind of like that.
All right, so summing up, this is polarization at an all-time high in our modern society here. Nixon was very polarizing in the 60s in Vietnam. That was pretty intense. We're way beyond that now. Way beyond. Trump is way beyond Nixon as far as polarization is concerned. Civil war was the worst, and people were killing each other. Yeah. And that will always be the worst. But now we are a nation that is divided. I don't see détente anytime soon. I'm trying, and I will high in our modern.
I want to hear something he said again.
At an all-time high in our modern society here. Nixon was very polarizing In the 60s in Vietnam, that was pretty
Oh,
intense.
Nixon, yeah.
We're way beyond that now.
Yeah.
Way beyond. Trump is way beyond Nixon as far as polarization is concerned. Civil War was the worst, and people were killing each other. And that'll always be the worst. But now we are a nation that is divided. I don't see détente anytime soon. I'm trying, and I will tell you what we're doing at the end of the program. That is the memo. I was talking about Elon Musk. Okay, so Tesla is being attacked. That's wrong. There have been 19 attacks
19.
on Tesla-related situations. 19.
And this is
And
like
this is
in
the
a week and a
FBI.
half.
And this is a test, so Cash Patel, the new FBI chief. You gotta tamp this down. So some examples, Las Vegas, Molotov cocktails. All right, thrown at a Tesla location, Tuesday of this week.
So they've been throwing Molotov cocktails at Tesla dealerships, probably for about a week now, I want to say. It could have been a little bit longer, a week and a half, if we go back and we count that Cybertruck event that took place before that horrible event that took place in New Orleans, where the F-150 plowed through a crowd of people that were celebrating a festival. That Cybertruck that blew up in front of a Trump Tower. So if let's call that the first incident. So this has been happening for some time now, but it's really been on high alert for about the last week, and it's been 19 in a week. Like, dude, the level of pettiness with some of the liberals is really disgusting. Like, I already knew it was there, but I'm telling you, this past election brought a lot of ugliness out of a lot of people.
In Oregon, it's still a radical left town. Gunshots fired at a Tesla dealership.
Left town.
Gunshots in Tigard, which is just outside of Portland. And then in Boston area, Littleton, Mass, half dozen Tesla charging stations were set ablaze. So this is domestic terrorism. Gotta stop.
Yeah.
And I trust the FBI will get these people and prosecute them federally.
Okay, so if you guys want to know anywhere I would land at with this, because I've had people ask me, if you are throwing Mazel Tov bombs at car dealerships, they don't have to be Tesla dealerships, whatever. Do it at a Ford dealership, right? Which is even worse because I love trucks. We'll do it at a Chevy dealership or something, or a GMC one. But if you're throwing Mazel Tov bombs at dealerships, and you're an American, and you're doing this to American-made car dealerships, and then you're doing this to other property based on your political views because you don't like what a politician in office is doing, you should be arrested for terroristic threat. You should be arrested for it. This is home. At this point, you're basically committing terrorism on your homeland. You should be arrested for it. Absolutely. As someone who served in the military and I know what terrorism looks like, why would an American be going around bombing American dealerships because they don't like Elon Musk? What would be wrong with that person mentally? Like, why would their political views be so overzealous that what would be happening in their mind that they would say to themselves on their couch, I'm going to go throw a bomb at a Tesla dealership? Like, what could he have done to make? Now I get it. It could be something with healthcare, but remember, right now, a lot of this hasn't gone into effect just yet. A lot of this is a lot of him still talking and planning and then telling what Doge is doing and what they're going to be doing. And yes, some of it has happened, but not all of it. So this much fear is driving somebody to go throw a bomb into car dealerships, and these are definitely radical left liberals because it's already been documented. I've been following this for some time. This is not conservatives. This is no one from the Republican Party. No one's doing that. These are definitely, I would say, overzealous leftists that are doing this. What would be going on in their mind that they would feel like, you know what, I'm so angry about what's going on in politics today, I'm going to go throw a bomb in a car dealership? Yeah, this is American terrorism at its finest.
To the full extent of the law. Now, I told Sean Hannity on his program Wednesday, and we have that posted on BillO'Reilly.com, that my investigation into this shows Antifa is involved. Remember Antifa, Portland, Oregon based. They don't have an office like Black Lives Matter, and they don't do that. It lives on the internet. and they have a radical list. And that's how they communicate. But they communicate privately as well to avoid scrutiny from the authorities. So a lot of these things are Antifa directed. Just keep that in mind. That's going to come out. It's important because when you have a radical group like the Ku Klux Klan, which was destroyed by the federal government, okay, the FBI destroyed it. You got to apply the same pressure on the left, Antifa.
Yep.
It's not happening in a vacuum.
They were going to parades and causing riots and doing everything, hurting people.
On television, the conservative commentators are going wild with this Tesla Elon Musk story. Over tape.
Radical left really is a threat to this country. There's no other way to say it. It is a cancer, and the proof is right here in these videos that we're starting to see everywhere. They're just lighting an American electric car company on fire every chance they get.
Those astronauts may not be here safely back on
Mind
Earth.
you, look at this, and this is why I say it's American terrorism. And as far as America is concerned, as someone who served America, I would say, yeah, you're an American terrorist if you're going around doing something like this, especially if it's driven by political views. Absolutely. Look at what the newsline reads: rabid leftists, rabid. Okay, like an animal that has rabies. This is what they're calling leftists who are mad about Elon Musk. Rabid leftists take out their anger on Teslas. This sounds insane. This sounds insane.
They're just lighting an American electric car company on fire every chance they get.
Those astronauts may not be here safely back on Earth without Elon Musk. People should be rooting for him, thanking him. But because of his partnership with President Trump, the left has somehow turned anything associated with Musk into a target.
That is not free speech. You know, when you see vandalism and hatred, and, you know, when will it end? When a Tesla driver is pulled out of their car and beaten? You know, will the leftist mob then cheer that? But they seem to be cannibalizing their own ideas and, you know, cheering for the failure of someone who could have, you know, accidentally been the one who moved their progressive agenda more forward than anyone else.
Okay, it's talking about, you know, global warming and electric cars and all of that. Now, on the left, there doesn't seem to be a lot of condemnation of the attacks on Elon Musk and his properties.
Now, that's interesting that Bill O'Reilly said that, because he's right. As much as I've been covering this, you do not see anybody on the Democratic side or on the liberal side saying, hey, like, they're saying that leftists are doing this. They're trying to say that we're putting some type of rhetoric out there that's motivating these type of crimes. Like, we have to step up and make sure that they know that the Democratic Party doesn't stand for any of this. Not Chuck Schumer, not Adam Schiff, not Hakeem Jeffries, not Elizabeth Warren, not Jasmine Crockett. None of them have come out and said anything about these Tesla bombings. And it's already been documented that these are hard leftists that are driven by political views.
And there was not huge adulation when SpaceX brought those astronauts home this week. I hope you've noticed that.
Yep.
In fact, some on the left, they kind of like all this. Roll the tape.
At least 5 Teslas blew up, 1 from the Molotov and 4 because that's just what Teslas do sometimes. And no one should be setting fires. You could kill somebody, you could hurt somebody. Elon Musk might not care about other people, but decent Americans should.
Elon Musk might not care about other people. You know, I don't know what's happened to him, Kimmel. I had a very good working relationship with him at one time. I don't know what he's doing. I don't know what Disney's doing. Disney owns ABC. I don't know what they're doing.
You know what they're doing, Bill? They're doing things like blocking people's content, like mine's. Like, they do things like give me copyright strikes because they don't like the way I react to something that they do. That's what Disney does. This is why I don't support Disney, because some of the behind the scenes stuff is pretty gross. But that's the type of stuff Disney's into. They're into censorship.
And then you get The View. They got Kimmel. Good Morning America's fallen apart completely. Their world news program, David Muir, that's okay. They're not crazy over there. I used to work for ABC, so I've got some skin in this game. I was a correspondent under Peter Jennings. But I don't know what Disney's doing. Okay, you're promoting this far left progressive agenda, Disney. Is that what you really want to do? I guess it is.
Yes.
Because they've been doing it for a while.
Yeah, that's what they want to
Now,
do.
NBC, Comcast, they do it. No doubt about it. CBS does it.
MSNBC does
And
it.
it's all because of the individuals running these corporations. They make the decisions. If I'm running Disney, I wouldn't cancel The View, but I would certainly put 2 conservative women on it.
Yeah.
I'd get rid of Joy Behar because she's irresponsible now. I don't believe she's in control of herself. I'd keep Goldberg. I don't think Whoopi Goldberg should be silenced, right? But bring on 2 and have 2 liberals and then have a rotation of it for a 5th.
Yeah.
You can't do that.
That would be better.
Disney, that's not hard. And it'd be a better show. So,
We can't get rid of Sunny though, because then we won't have as much back and forth as we need, and then the conservatives we won't have a lot of content if we get rid of Sunny, so we can't get rid of Sunny.
I don't know. I like Jimmy Kimmel. It hurts me to see this kind of radicalism from him.
Yeah, it's
I don't like.
he's been
I don't
doing
like
this for
anything
some time.
about him. Never have. So I don't care what he does. But Kimmel, I got a little skin in the game with it. Sorry about the cliche.
Last year, investors scored the highest profits in decades. Unfortunately, the rest of us.
So that's YouTube, and we do want you.
All right, guys. So I'm gonna cut that there. Bill's gonna go on a little bit, but we're gonna change gears. So, to something that Bill O'Reilly said with Jimmy Kimmel and his radicalism. He has been doing that now for some time, but he wasn't always like that. At one point, he came off a little bit more balanced than that. Jimmy Kimmel's been on for some time. He's been on TV for some time. So he, at one point, had a lot more what I feel like were balanced views. And I think that people who have watched him for some time would say that. I think over the last couple of years, I would say he's going pretty far left, and that could just be for views. Who knows? That could be for views. But it is sad to see, and as far as these approval ratings that we saw, some of them are, like I said, pretty spot on. Some of them, it hasn't been enough time. Others, not being very fair, and that could be because maybe people don't like the lack of experience. Granted, President Trump has been a president before, but J.D. Vance has never been a vice president before, and he's fairly young. I think they're being a little hard on J.D., but let's see with some time if those numbers change. Let's see what they look like 6 months, a year from now. So switching gears a little bit, guys, we're going to go over to ANI News. U.S. President Trump addresses educational event before signing executive orders in Washington, D.C. So this is President Trump dealing with some executive orders pertaining to education. At this moment where he's talking, he hasn't signed them just yet because I caught it early on before he got to that point. But he does go a little bit into detail about what he's doing, why these EOs are coming into existence, and what his goal is for the foreseeable future. He really has a lot of confidence in the states when it comes to education. I'm not saying I don't know how I feel about that. I think it's very subjective. I think if you live in a state where they already promote education, where they're really big on making sure that their students are getting educated, and there's a lot of investment into that, I think those states are going to do great. States where test scores are already really, really low, or maybe in the country the state already places fairly low on a spectrum of where the schools fall at, I'm a little bit more concerned about that. So I don't know. I think this is it's an extremely subjective thing. I want to say it kind of looks the way it does, with Roe v. Wade, but a little bit different, because in that situation we had trigger states, which that, for a lot of people that did suck, because a trigger state is just they were states that were just waiting for it to be overturned. And the minute Roe v. Wade was overturned, that was a trigger. Boom. Now you can't ever get an abortion here. And if you do, you can be arrested, right? Or sent to jail. So that's what a trigger state was when it came to Roe v. Wade. When it comes to the educational system, I really just think it's so subjective. Like I said, the states that are already doing really well, educating their students, I think, and taking care of their teachers, I think they're going to do well. And the states that are not, which we know most of the states that tend to do not so great and tend to be in ruins, are the blue states. I'm more concerned, you know. So let's see what President Trump has to say about this.
Thank you very much, Evan. And I'd like to start by saying that our country is doing very well. Things are, as you can see, doing quite well. Please sit down. Before we begin, I just want to announce that I signed a proclamation a few moments ago honoring the 250th anniversary of Patrick Henry's famous speech to the Second Virginia Convention, in which he declared very well-known, very famous words, "Give me liberty or give me death." Has anyone heard the phrase? I think most of you have. And moments ago, I also signed an executive order to dramatically increase production of critical minerals and rare earths. It's a big thing in this country, and as you know, we're also signing agreements in various locations to unlock rare earths and minerals and lots of other things all over the world, but in particular Ukraine. We're doing very well with regard to Ukraine and Russia. And one of the things we are doing is signing a deal very shortly with respect to rare earths with Ukraine, which they have tremendous value in rare earth, and we appreciate that. And we spoke yesterday with, as you know, President Putin and President Zelensky, and we would love to see that come to an end, and I think we're doing pretty well in that regard. So hopefully we can save thousands of people a week from dying. That's what it's all about. They're dying so unnecessarily, and I believe we'll get it done. We'll see what happens, but I believe we'll get it done.
Today we're going to talk about something that has completely changed my pool game.
Today we take a very historic action that was 45 years in the making. In a few moments I will sign an executive order to begin eliminating the Federal Department of Education once and for all. And it sounds strange, doesn't it? Department of Education, we're going to eliminate it, and everybody knows it's right. And the Democrats know it's right, and I hope they're going to be voting for it, because ultimately it may come before them, but...
So how do we feel about President Trump eliminating the Federal Department of Education? Guys, do me a favor. I got 11 in the chat. Hit that like button for me. It takes 1 second, guys, and it's free.
Everybody knows it's right, and we have to get our children educated. We're not doing well with the world of education in this country, and we haven't for a long time. And we're pleased to be joined today by the woman who I chose because she's an extraordinary person, and hopefully she will be our last Secretary of Education, Linda McMahon. Linda, thank you.
Linda McMahon is the person who President Trump put as the head of the Director of Education, and she is Vince McMahon's ex-wife. I think they got divorced now from WWE. I think they're divorced and they're not together any longer now.
Thank you very much. That's another interesting statement. It's an interesting opening, right? But it's true, and people, it's been amazing how popular this has been. I tell people that this is what I'm doing today, and they say, oh, it's about time. Everybody says it. Republicans and Democrats have said it, and they're all saying it. Also with us are some terrific people. Governors Greg Abbott. Greg, thank you very much. Governor Ron DeSantis, thank you very much, Ron. Mike Braun, congratulations on your victory, Mike. That was a big one. Mike DeWine, thank you very much, Mike.
I'm sorry, it's so funny to hear President Trump say Ron DeSantis like that and actually smile at him, when a year ago these two were like at each other's throats. It was hilarious. Remember, President Trump endorsed him because he wasn't really doing anything in the polls for Florida, and then like he gets elected, and I guess he got to the point where he wanted to run for president at some point, and he starts basically like throwing Trump under the bus. That's when I mean, I already wasn't a fan of Ron DeSantis, but when I saw him do that, I was like, nope, no loyalty, no way.
Jeff Landry. Jeff, thank you very much, Jeff. Bill Lee, thank you. Governors, all governors. Brad Little. Brad, thank you very much. Where are you, Brad? Hi, Brad. Jim Pilan, thank you very much, Jim. And Kim Reynolds. These are all people very interested in education. And I even see Dan Patrick over there, my friend Dan Patrick. We're joined also by Representatives Tim Walberg and Virginia Fox, Rick Allen, Michael Rulli, and again, Dan Patrick, thank you very much, Dan. You've been a great friend of ours. And State Attorneys General Ken Paxton. Ken, I see you there. Andrew Bailey. Andrew, what a job you've done, Andrew. You have some good cases going. You've done a great job. Thank you very much. And co-founder of Moms for Liberty, Tiffany Justice. She's been a hard worker. Thank you. Thank you, Billy. Thank you, Tiffany. When President Carter created the Federal Education Department in 1979, it was opposed by members of his own cabinet, as well as the American Federation of Teachers, the New York Times editorial board, and the famed Democrat Senator Daniel Patrick Moynihan.
So President Trump is reading off all of the people that opposed the Federal Department of Education when it was first brought out in 1979. So he's gonna start off by showing people that, you know, this was already a bad idea to begin with, and then he's gonna talk a little bit about why.
History has proven them right, absolutely right. After 45 years, the United States spends more money on education by far than any other country, and spends likewise by far more money per pupil than any country, and it's not even close, but yet we rank near the bottom of the list in terms of success. It's an amazing stat. Those are two stats you don't want. The most money spent per pupil, and you're at the bottom of the list. And that's where we are, like it or not. And we've been there for a long time. 70% of 8th graders are not proficient in either reading or in math. 70%. 40% of 4th graders lack even basic reading skills, can't read. Students in our public elementary and middle schools score worse in...
Dude, like, how are these kids getting out of school? Because, like, 70%, how are you not efficient in math and reading? Like, I grew up in New York, so we had to take Regents. And Regents are hard as hell. So how is it that they are even getting to the next grade not proficient in math and reading? 70%. So out of 10 students, seven of them can't do basic math and reading. That's what... And you know what... Linda McMahon, the lady who President Trump put as the director of education, she said it's not that they can't read. She said they can't read cognitively. So it's like they can't read on a level where there's great understanding. And I'm like, well, then what level are you reading on? Like, if you're not reading with understanding, how are you reading at all? I'm like, man, 70%. That's a crazy number.
In reading today than when the department opened by a lot. In Baltimore, 40% of the high schools have 0 students who can do basic mathematics. Not even the very simplest of mathematics. I said, give me your definition of basic, and they're talking about like adding a few numbers together.
No, that's wild. I gotta go back. Hold on a minute.
Either reading or in math, 70%. 40% of 4th graders lack even basic reading skills, can't read. Students in our public elementary and middle schools score worse in reading today than when the department opened by a lot. In Baltimore, 40% of the high schools have 0 students who can do basic mathematics. Not even by a lot. In Baltimore, 40% of the high schools have 0 students who can do basic mathematics.
40, like, that's why I rewinded it that many times. Of the high schools, Like, he didn't even say of Elon. Dude, that's crazy. 40%? That's like a 14-year-old. Oh my goodness.
Not even the very simplest of mathematics. I said, give me your definition of basic, and they're talking about like adding a few numbers together.
A high school student adding a few numbers together. Okay.
Despite these breathtaking failures, the department's discretionary budget has exploded by 600% in a very short period of time and employs bureaucrats in buildings all over Washington, D.C. And as a former real estate person, I will tell you, I ride through the streets of Washington and it says Department of Education, Department of Education. I said, how do you fill those buildings? It's crazy what's happened over the years. I'm pleased to report that after offering these federal employees 2 generous buyout options, and they were very generous, and they're good people, but they were very generous. My administration has initiated a reduction in force, and we're already cutting numbers that were really surprising to a lot that we were able to do it so successfully. And we've cut the number of bureaucrats in half. 50% have taken office, which is good. Under the action I'm taking today, a small handful of Democrats and others that we have employed for a long time, and there are some Republicans, but not too many, I have to be honest with you. But the department's useful functions, and such as, and they're in charge of them, Pell Grants, Title I funding, resources for children with disabilities and special needs will be preserved, fully preserved. They're all going to be so. If you look at the Pell Grants, it's supposed to be a very good program, Title I funding and resources for children with special disabilities and special needs. They're going to be preserved in full and redistributed to various other agencies and departments that will take very good care of them. And it's very important to Linda, I know, and it's very important to all of us.
I was happy he did at least keep that in place. I was worried about that, but I thought it was good he didn't get rid of, at least that part, because that would have sucked.
But beyond these core necessities, my administration will take all lawful steps to shut down the department. We're going to shut it down and shut it down as quickly as possible. It's doing us no good. We want to return our students to the states where just some of the governors here are so happy about this. They want education to come back to them, to come back to the states, and they're going to do a phenomenal job. If you look, Denmark, Norway, Sweden, I have to tell you, I give them a lot of credit. China's top 10, and so we can't now say that.
Man, this is where the nervousness for me kicks in. All I have to say is whoever the governor of Baltimore is, he needs to get on his job fast, or her. Let me look up this governor. No, I know it's a male. I just can't remember his name now. It just came to my head. I know it's a male. Yeah, he needs to get on his job, because 40% of your high school students not being able to do basic math, no, that's not a good look. As a parent, I wouldn't feel, if my children were in public school in Baltimore, knowing that 40% of the students can't do basic math, and these are high school students, no, I would be ready to move to another state.
That bigness is making it impossible to educate, because China is very big. But you have countries that do a very good job in education, and I really believe, like some of the governors here today, from states that run very, very well, including a big state like Texas, but states that run very well are going to have education that will be as good as Norway, Denmark, Sweden, and those top, Finland, those top countries that do so well with education. I think they'll do every bit as well.
Come on, YouTube, you're killing me right now.
And what do you think about that, Governor? Do you agree? I think so. Ron, do you agree? I think so. Florida? Iowa? That's right. I really believe that. They'll be as good as any of them. And then you'll have some laggards, and we'll work with them. and we can all tell you who the laggards will be right now probably, but let's not get into that. But we'll work with them, and we're gonna make them, they'll do a job. I think they'll do a job, and they'll go to sections of the state. For instance, New York, you'll have a Manhattan, and you'll have a Suffolk County, and you'll have a Nassau County, and you'll have Westchester County. You'll do 4 or 5 or 6 of them. You have upstate New York, and those counties I think are gonna do very well, and I think ultimately Manhattan should do very well, but we'll break it down into sections, and I think it'll be really, really good, and they're going to be probably the tougher ones, but I think they have a chance to do really well. But we're going.
Yeah, Manhattan might do well, but what about the Bronx? What about Queens? There's more than just one borough, but you know this, President Trump.
Going to be returning education very simply back to the states where it belongs, and this is a very popular thing to do, but much more importantly, it's a common sense thing to do, and it's going to work. Absolutely, it's going to work, and I can tell you from dealing with the governors and others in the state, they want it so badly. They want to take their children back and really teach their children individually. Probably the cost will be half, and the education will be maybe many, many times better. So we look forward to this. I want to just make one little personal statement. Teachers to me are among the most important people in this country, and we're going to take care of our teachers. And I don't care if they're in the union or not in the union, that doesn't matter. But we're going to take care of our teachers, and I believe the states will take actually better care of them than they are taken care of right now. They'll work all sorts of systems, and even merit systems. Those great teachers are going to be maybe a little bit better rewarded, or maybe that's the way it should be, but the states are going to make that decision. But we're going to love and cherish our teachers along with our children, and they're going to work with the parents, and they're going to work with everybody else, and it's going to be an amazing thing to watch, and it's really going to be something special. And Linda, you're presiding over something that's so important, and you're going to do a fantastic job, just like you have your whole life. I know your whole life I've been watching you. I've been watching you for a long time. She's had nothing but success. So it's tremendous to have you, and hopefully you won't be there too long, but we're going to find something else for you, Linda, okay? So this will conclude what we are talking about with respect to our most cherished group of people, and that's our children. We want to have our children well educated, and we want them to love going to school. We have examples of it. Look at those beautiful, bright-eyed faces. They are so smart. They're so smart. And with that, I'm going to come down, and we're going to sign a very important document, and we're going to be on our way. People have wanted to do this for many, many years, for many, many decades. And I don't know, no president ever got around to doing it, but I'm getting around to doing it, so thank you very much.
So if you guys want to look up more about that, all you have to do is go on YouTube and search it. You'll be able to see him signing the EO for that. I was curious to know what you guys thought about that, because a lot of people are nervous about, you know, the whole Federal Department of Education being done away with. Not completely, but shrinking down to the size that it is, and basically going back to the states. As I said, I'm not very, very concerned about it. I'm a little worried, you know, because the states that aren't doing the greatest with education, I hope they improve. You know, I'm hoping that it's just not, but you know, the president said we'll work with those states, but there are parents that are nervous about it. There were federal workers nervous about it. You know, and like I said, the states that already have good investment in their schools and in their children, I think they will probably continue to do well, if not even better. But the ones that already are struggling, are not doing the greatest, I have a little bit concern there. But, you know, let's see what happens. You know, let's see what happens. We might have a lot more investment in those states where the schools are not doing the greatest, because now people might feel, you know, better in investing in the school because the states have more control and not the federal government. So, you know, I still have hope, you know, throughout the whole thing. I'm just hoping that it works out best, because, you know, that's a child's future. And there are a lot of children who rely on the public school system. free education. So let's see what happens. Let's see how it turns out. Right now, I'm not going to be the Debbie Downer because I can't predict the future. But I know that some of it could turn out better than we think. So I don't want to be too concerned about it. Where there is no fire, I'm not going to throw water. All right, guys. So switching gears a little bit. Trump calls Canada a nasty negotiator. Comments on election. This part right here this was one of the parts of the live I was a little worried about getting to because I have to be fair across the board. I'm a balanced person. And even though I will not come on here and talk bad or disrespect my president, that doesn't mean I won't critique him. And I do not like what I see as far as like the way things are going right now with Canada. I don't want to say Pierre P is right and that from his perspective, he thinks that Trump wants Canada to be weak because he's trying to build an empire. I'm not going to sit here and say that I side with Pierre wholeheartedly, but I can understand and I can see his perspective when it comes to Canada because he is more conservative. Canada is the channel it is the country on my channel that's probably the second most watched. So they watch me probably the second most to the United States, if not Germany. Sometimes it's up there competing with Canada. So I keep up with Canadian news as best as I can because I am in America, so I tend to watch that a little bit more. But I watch Canadian news often, so when I watch it, I'm familiar with what I'm watching. Carney, when I first saw Carney, didn't know much about him, so didn't have a big opinion about him. Kind of watched some things and what people had to say about him. They don't feel like he's the common liberal, so I guess in American terms, I can say they don't feel like he's a Joe Biden or he's a Kamala Harris. Let's say that. They feel like he's a little bit more attuned to the people. Some. This is the opinion I've seen of some, right? So they feel like he's a little bit more serious than the average liberal. They even went as far as to say he's more serious than Justin Trudeau. So, they're kind of calling Carney not your average liberal. I don't want to say they said he has a twist of conservatism because I don't see that. But they're just not calling him your average liberal. Very much a self-starter, not a lot of talk. There's some action to him. So when I saw those things, I'm like, okay, I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt. I'm not in Canada. My friends in Canada are not saying too much about him right now. And then, of course, as time goes on, you start to see things come out. Carney exposed, Carney sold out Canada. So you start watching that and you familiarize yourself. And I don't know, right now, I feel like Mark Carney's kind of suspect. I do. I do. I mean, now, any of you guys that are Canadian that know better, please feel free to chime in the chat, and tell me something that I do not know because I want to know if I don't know. But right now, to me, Mark Carney is giving suspect. He's giving suspect, right? He's giving off Joe a little bit, if I'm transparent. He's giving off a little bit of Joe Biden, Kamala Harris administration. And I don't know how I feel about that. When it comes to his money and his assets and his billions, he's worked hard for it. It's his, rightfully so. He owns it. But that doesn't mean that if he's running for political office that the people of Canada are not entitled to at least know about it. So where I can say that somebody has this skin in the game is President Trump. Like, America is very aware that President Trump is a successful president. They're very aware that he had money coming into office, very aware that he does not need the U.S. president's salary, very aware that he can pay for his own campaigning, even though because he has friends in great and high places, he had a lot of donations. So America was very aware of what President Trump was into, where it came from, his money, his charges. We knew all that stuff about President Trump. I had no idea why Mark Carney would be prime minister and the money, his assets, the things that he's tied into can't be known to the Canadian people. That's suspect to me. Now that's where he's giving off some Democratic U.S. presidency vibes right there, because it's like, dude, you have to be transparent with your people. Now, this is where I said, like, for my Canadian friends, I feel like they're leaning more conservative. Again, I'm not in the country, but this is just me talking to some of my friends, reacting to the news. It's giving a lot of what America just came out of, right? A lot of America was like, hey, okay, Democrats have been running the show for some time. They're like way off to the left. We don't like how far left they went. So we're going to bring the country back right? And the American people voted, and that's who's in office now. Canada's kind of giving that. They're kind of giving like, listen, we're having a lot of problems. The liberalism is kind of killing us at this point economically. We need to move the country a little bit more right. So I'm thinking that Pierre is a great candidate for Canada. And I wasn't wrong, because I learned that he was leading in the polls. He was 35% up, 35% up in the polls. So I'm like, oh, that's great. And then the president of the United States does something. He says something, as our president often does. Guys, do me a favor. You're in the chat. Hit that like button for me, guys. It takes 1 second. Just hit that like button for me. It's free. It does a ton for the channel. I appreciate you. So, the United States president, and Canada is calling this, which I think is hilarious, foreign presidential interference, which it is, because President Trump is not from Canada. So he goes on the record to say that Canada will do better with a liberal rather a conservative. And the minute I heard President Trump say this, it's like if I was driving a car, slam on the brakes, car screech, and I'm like, say what now? President Trump thinks that Canada would do better with a liberal. Why would President Trump think that when he knew America needed a conservative? Why would he think something like this? It raised a red flag to me. I'm just saying, I'm going to go to some of my trusted sources because I'm dying to know what they're saying. I have to know what Candace Owens feels about this, or Ben Shapiro, or Tucker Carlson. Theo Vaughn might have looked at it. There's a couple of people who I've watched. Brandon Tatum might have seen something and said something about it. But I like to go to some of my trusted sources and see like what they're gathering. But I thought this was suspect to me. As someone who watched President Trump from the moment he started campaigning, I was like, President Trump knew that America did not need a liberal again. He knew that. The American people knew that they didn't need a liberal again. The election proved that. So why would Donald Trump go on record to say that Canada would do better with a liberal over a Republican or over a conservative? I was troubled by this. I was troubled. Then I see Pierre Poilievre on his YouTube channel, and he makes a comment, and he says, did you know that Mark Carney moved one of his headquarters to New York 6 days after President Trump's inauguration? I was unaware of this. I was unaware of that. When I learned that about Mark Carney, I was like, huh. You know, I still tried to give him the benefit of the doubt. What set me off was the fact that he wasn't willing to be transparent about his assets and his money. I mean, no one cares, dude. No one's trying to rob you. But if you're going to be a politician and you're going to run for the people, why would you try to keep that from your people? It just seems kind of suspect. So let's see what President Trump has to say about Canada being a nasty negotiator.
Well, people are coming to me and talking about tariffs, and a lot of people are asking me if they could have exceptions. And once you do that for one, you have to do that for all. So, I mean, generally, I did something interestingly during 2 weeks ago. I gave the American car companies a break, because it would have been unfair if I didn't. And everybody said, oh, he changed his mind on tariffs. I didn't change my mind. I helped our, sort of big three, big four. I helped some of the American companies. And instead of taking it properly, they said, oh, he changed it. I don't change, but the word flexibility is an important word. Sometimes there's flexibility, so there'll be flexibility. But basically, it's reciprocal, so that if China is charging us 50% or 30% or 20%, and I don't mean China, I mean anybody, any country, Canada. Nobody knows that Canada is charging our dairy farmers. They have 270% tariffs. Nobody knows that.
Did you guys hear that? Canada's charging our dairy farmers 270% tariffs. Now, I'm only pointing that, again, love Canada, not really concerned about that per se, but I'm pointing it out because for people who don't understand tariffs, and everybody's been going, oh my God, President Trump, he's killing us with these tariffs, he's going to drive the economy down. Let everything pan out. There are countries that are literally, I'm not going to say that word. Thank you God for stopping me from saying that word, because YouTube's not going to like it. So let's say taking advantage. There are countries that are grotesquely taking advantage of the United States when it comes to tariffs. This I know. He just said 270% on dairy farmers from Canada. Okay, there's other countries that charge us 700% for rice, 400% for milk, There's countries that do this, and people on American soil are getting mad at President Trump. He's only putting out 25% on these countries. He's not even touching what some of them are even charging us. But if we don't understand what a tariff is, this is why this is why people want to kill Elon Musk and they can't stand President Trump, because they just don't understand what's happening here. This man is literally putting out, like, globally, some places are different, some places are higher, and it's like that with us in other countries. But globally, we could say congruently a 25% tariff for the most part. Other countries have higher because they've initiated a retaliatory tariff, and President Trump is like, if you do that, I'm going to do something insane. Like what he told Europe when he put a 25% tariff. Europe got upset. They put a retaliatory, I think it was 25% on us. And President Trump said, if the EU does not remove this 25% retaliatory tariff, I'm going to put a 200% on all alcohol. Okay, so he's like that. This is why I said I wish, like, this is in a perfect world. I wish that countries could be more understanding that our past administrations were just so bad and they weren't doing the right thing by us in the trade war, and they have to let President Trump reset this ground. But we're never going to get that much understanding from other countries, so they're just going to be pissed off at President Trump. And that's why it seems like there's a trade war.
Nobody knows that. They have up to 400%. They have a couple of tariffs at 400%. Nobody knows that. Nobody talks about that. And remember, with Canada, we don't need their cars, we don't need their lumber, we don't need their energy, we don't need anything from Canada, and yet it costs us $200 billion a year in subsidy to keep Canada afloat. So when I say they should be a state, I mean that. I really mean that, because we can't be expected to carry a country that is right next to us on our border. It would be a great state, it would be a cherished state. The taxes for Canadian citizens would go down in less than half. They don't spend money on military because they think we're going to protect them. There are many things that they do, like icebreakers. They want us to provide icebreakers for them. Oh, that's wonderful. So, the Canada, they're very tough traders too. I want to just tell you, all the people, they're tough traders. They trade very tough. And, the expression I use is, some people don't have the cards. I used that expression about a week and a half ago, right? Somebody was negotiating who didn't have the cards, who's now, I think, saying that he wants to do it, and I think we're going to have a big deal on that. Very special something. We got to make a deal on that. But Canada has been a very nasty negotiator against the United States, took advantage of the United States for a long time.
Are you concerned that if they became the 51st state, they would be a very, very blue state? Very, very big and very, very blue.
No, they might be, but it would, you have that artificial line that goes, that straight artificial, that looked like it was drawn by a ruler. Somebody with I don't mean a ruler like a king, I mean like a ruler. This way.
A ruler like
a ruler. It's just an artificial line that was drawn
like
in the sand. Or in the ice. And can I tell Peter, just, you add that to this country, what a beautiful landmass, the most beautiful landmass anywhere in the world. And it was just cut off for whatever reason. It would be great. Now, is it liberal? Maybe. But, a conservative until I got involved, because I don't care who wins up there. And frankly, probably would do better with a liberal than the conservative, if you want to know the truth. But just a little while ago, before I got involved and totally changed the election, which I don't care about, probably it's to our advantage, actually. But the conservative was leading against, I call him Governor Trudeau. The conservative was leading by 35 points. So, so I don't know about that. I think Canada's a place like a lot of other places. If you have a good candidate, they can't.
See, I don't like it. It's so suspect. I don't like it. And he even goes on the record to say it's probably to our advantage. And it's like, I gotta be balanced. I gotta be honest. I have to be balanced because I'm not gonna do it any other way. But I don't like it because President Trump knows how he felt with the 2020 election. We have not heard President Trump stop talking about the fact that he thinks the 2020 election was stolen from him. We haven't heard him stop talking about it. And he has went on a rant about what he thinks was election interference. We've seen this. So to hear him sit here and say, you know, I don't care who's running up there, I don't care about the election, but before I got involved, you know, I changed it. The conservative was up by 35 points, you know, and now I don't know about that. It's like, really, Donald Trump? Like, this is where I'm probably going to get the rudest with my president as a prior Marine. But I'm going to be like, really, Trump? Come on, man. Like, as if America is the best of the best of the best, there's nothing wrong with no one getting stronger around you, right? That's what good leaders would want. So I like this part. I can honestly tell you guys, I cannot understand about President Trump. I know Pierre is a better candidate for Canada. I know that he is, especially if you listen to what the Canadians are saying. It's the same. They're going through the same thing that we went through here in America, dealing with the Democratic administration for so long, and seeing things just like really blow up before a lot of people were like, all right, we got to make a change. And it's literally the same thing happening. And to hear President Trump say they probably do better with the liberal, and not knowing how he affected the election, also at the same time saying that he knows he affected the election because the conservative was up by 35 points, and now I don't know about that. It's like, President Trump, that's crazy. And this is why Canada's calling it foreign election interference, because I mean, he's not physically doing anything, but he has sway. There's Canadians that like President Trump. Not all of them, but there's a decent amount. So just President Trump saying that Canada would do better with a liberal, it changed the freaking polls. Like, it literally, like last time I checked, now it looks like the liberals are in the run, and I'm just like, why would President Trump do something like this? Jay Herbert, shout out to you. Jojo, shout out to you. Demon, shout out to you. How you doing, Debbie? Thanks for stopping by. Jack, shout out to you. I appreciate you guys saying what's up in the chat. Do me a favor and hit that like button, guys. It's free. It takes 1 second. Just click out. Hit it for me real quick. Jay Hoover, I think there are many people like yourself that are seeing through this nonsense. Dude, that, like, I'm telling you right now, that blew my mind. That blew my mind. And I'm not an uninformed American, so that's why I said I'm not going to disagree with Pierre when he said that it's clear that President Trump wants to see Canada weak. I wouldn't use those words, right? But I mean, if it's a chess game, right? President Trump is definitely, you know, playing it smart. I don't like it. I have to be honest. I'm a balanced person. I mean, I am in America. That's my president. I'm a Marine, so I don't come on my channel and I don't disrespect the president, and I'm not going to say ill will things about him. If anything, if I felt some type of way, I would say it in private, and that's just the type of person I am. But that doesn't mean that I'm not going to critique, because that is what I do, and I'm not going to react to it, and I'm not going to show if I agree with it or not. And I didn't like that move. I didn't like it. Like, we could see the state that Canada's in, and it's like, I really feel like a conservative would be better. And I feel like President Trump knows that. So that just, like, that wrecked me a little bit when I saw that. I was like, I don't like that, Trumpy. I don't like that, President Trump. We got to work on that one, because, you know, we don't need this from Canada. We don't need that from Canada. But then at the same time, man, if we added that to this landscape, it would be the most beautiful place on the planet. It's like, make up your mind, dude. You know, he said that he can't talk bad about Putin, and he can't say bad things about Putin and then go to the table and be like, yeah, what's up, Putin? Let's, you know, what's up, Vlad? Let's make a deal. Well, you know, you're not going to woo the Canadians like that. You know, it's already, like I was saying this, you're already disrespectful, like telling the whole entire country, oh, you be a great dot on our map. Like, you're already disrespectful. And it's like, this is what we know about President Trump. He's himself. He's going to say what he feels. We know this, and I know this about him from his first term. So what he feels, he's going to say, and he's serious when he's like, I think they should be a state because this, and this works out. I'm just saying, if I was a whole entire country and someone wanted to treat me like a dot, I would feel a bit disrespected as well. So I can understand. So not switching gears too much, because Jordan Peterson, someone who I love on this channel a lot, and I react to often things by Jordan Peterson. Also a Canadian who I have ample amounts of respect for. but is very respectful and loves America. So I am a huge fan of Jordan Peterson. He actually is having this conversation with James Basili. In case you guys don't know who James or Jim Basili is, he is the co-founder of BlackBerry. So he's one of the faces of BlackBerry, and he and Jordan Peterson sat down for almost a 2-hour long podcast. It was very good. A lot of Canadians really loved it. They said it was very eye-opening for them when it comes to elections and thinking about things, and they felt like Donald Trump, if he did anything, he made Canada analyze their own worth. And I'm like, great. I hope he did do that, because again, I'm gonna stand by the fact that I think Pierre is a better candidate. I always tell my friends in Canada, listen, if there's a better candidate that I don't know about, tell me, so I'm talking about both candidates on my channel. But my friends that are pretty conservative leaning in Canada, they also feel like Pierre is a pretty good choice. Let's see what Jay said. Jay said, I'm born and raised in Canada, and I actually like that your president is fighting for you. But the problem is he's attacking the wrong country. I agree with you. I agree with that. I would not contest that at all. I've said it plenty of times on my channel. Love Canada, have friends there, friends in the military there, have some family there. I don't like it, you know, but I'm just, having served my country and just the type of person I am, I'm not going to get on here and just blast my president. I do like President Trump's stance, because you can tell that other countries are aware that there's certain things he's not going to just stand for and he's not going to take. I don't feel like Canada needs that energy, and I haven't felt like that. So again, just because you might align with somebody on certain things doesn't mean you agree with every single thing that they're saying. We don't even agree with every single thing the people we love say, right? I don't agree with every single thing my wife says, and she doesn't agree with every single thing I say. But nonetheless, I know where this is coming from, and I know President Trump is trying to reset this baseline, because just when America has bad administrations and they don't do what they're supposed to do, this is how this stuff happens. And Donald Trump knows that America's been treated unfairly when it comes to trade. And a lot of people don't even understand tariffs, Jay. A lot of people don't even understand that there are countries taking advantage of America when it comes to tariffs. And they're getting mad at their own president for putting 25% out globally. They don't understand that. You know, there are countries that are literally just straight disrespectful with the percentage of tariffs that's on America, and for them to then initiate a retaliatory tariff of 25% on top of their 400, 150, 175 that most Americans don't even know we're already getting charged by that country. I just think it's a hard thing that President Trump walked into, but I know he's up for the job. He's the type of guy that he's just controversial. So if he sees that resetting the baseline with the trade is going to do it for America, that's what he's going to do. So Jordan Peterson here and Jim Basili are talking about Mark Carney. And they're specifically talking about why Mark Carney is going to fail at being the Prime Minister for Canada. So this was extremely intriguing to me. So I had to click on this, and I was like, I have to pair this with, you know, also President Trump, of course, saying that Canada would do better with a liberal. Because some of Canada's most brilliant minds don't agree with that. And that's including Elon Musk. This is how balanced of a person I am. I'm just going to be honest with you guys, because I was following it, so I saw it with my own eyes. Just probably 8 months ago, Elon Musk was endorsing Pierre Poilievre. Just 8 months ago. Maybe 8, 9, I don't know, 6. It was somewhere late last year, and I almost remember the X post by heart, but it's not word for word. But I remember him saying something about Trudeau. Maybe he's like killing the economy, or he's a weak leader, and that, you know, vote for Pierre. I remember this post. Like, this is not a post I saw online. I saw this with my own eyes. So to see President Trump, you know, sit in an interview and say that the conservative from Canada is no friend of his, I was like, what is even happening right now? So believe me, it's not like every single American is sitting over here. We're like, yeah, like some of us are like, okay, like this is not where that we wanted the energy to go. We thought it was going to go over here. So let's take a look at what James Basili and Jordan Peterson have to say about Mark Carney not being a good Prime Minister for Canada.
pushing a green agenda, let's say, along with Trudeau has been pushing a green agenda, let's say, along with Guilbeault for 10 years. And he's doing that.
Who's Guilbeault? I've heard of him before. This is Guilbeault. Is he somebody? I know he worked with Trudeau. I know he was like some sort of assistant to him or something like that. But if I got any Canadians in the chat, you guys let me know who this guy is right here, because I've heard a couple of people tell me that. I respect that. Yep, thank you, Jay. I appreciate that. Hey guys, do me a favor while you're in the chat. Hit that like button for me, guys. It does a ton for the channel. It's free. I promise you I won't drive you crazy, but I will ask you to hit the like button. Do that for me. But this guy right here, who was assistant to Trudeau, like, is this guy someone who's also running for prime minister? Or is he just someone who's working with Trudeau, and now that Trudeau's not there, he's not there? I'm not sure, but I've had a couple people jump into my lives, a couple of my Canadian friends, and actually say that they didn't want Trudeau, they wanted him. Some said they didn't want Pierre, they wanted him. I'm not too familiar with this guy, but if I don't have many of you in here who know who he is, I'm going to try to do a little bit more research on him.
Trudeau has been pushing a green agenda, let's say, along with Guilbeault for 10 years. And he's doing that in the same way that the Europeans are doing that, and he's doing that in the same way that the World Economic Forum types, the Davos intellectuals, quasi-intellectuals, are promoting. But my sense of Trudeau, and I think this is valid, is that he is nothing but a follower of those ideas. But that's not the case with Carney. Carney is a major architect and initiator of such ideas. And then
well, could be, but whether that's a good idea or bad, he's using Ottawa's failed economic logic of the 70s to affect the norm of a green transition or anything else.
Yes.
Whether
so even if he's right, it's not going to work.
Right.
Yeah.
And I'm not making a normative case whether it's a good or bad idea.
Me making the normative
he's just it's going to fail, and it's going to fail in obvious economics.
Okay, and what'll failure look like?
Well, and there's a second leg to the failure.
Okay.
That the most profound force in the history of mankind in economics.
Trump is now in his first month in office, and we want to know how you think he's doing as president. You guys know how I
is the data-driven AI economy. And he has nothing to say of data as a factor of production and input to AI, and how we have to own and control that and harness our own AI. He says nothing about it. He said he has 2 sentences about be careful about privacy and social media, and that's it. And so, if you look at every market, and
be careful about privacy and social media. What does that even mean? That almost sounds like censorship.
Look at every market. Energy, mining, agriculture, lumber, they're all AI and IP driven. Mm-hmm. And so he has nothing to say about that.
Why are they AI?
Well, because the force of it is allowing, as Schlumberger, who's one of the top 10 AI IP owners in the world, and Halliburton, but Schlumberger too. The oil is a digital economy, but you need digital AI and IP to get it out of the ground, get it refined.
Right, so even on the resource side, the IP ownership and tech element is increasingly predominant.
It's like the delivery taxi cab business. It became IP driven.
Right.
The medallion used to be worth $2 million. It went to zero because it's this superstructure of IP and data. And the same applies to shopping.
Right. So the consequence of virtualization is total. It even transforms.
It's horizontal.
Right.
It's horizontal, and there's no articulation of that. So it's very important. He lays out a path that affects us to an adverse outcome because of the dichotomy, and he says nothing about the innovation structure adjustment, but he uses further 1970s economic analysis that he says, because he very famously said, businessmen are sitting on dead money. It's a very famous expression he said. And he said that we use shovels instead of excavators, backhoes. He said that, which means we don't invest in technology. So the key is that if business people stopped being lazy and they opened up their wallets and just threw it in there, they would do great. And
that's actually kind of a variation of the libertarian argument.
But it's also a variation of complacency.
Yes, exactly.
Resource-first complacency.
Yeah.
And I've been doing business in this country for 35 years. I have never met a CEO who says, I'm just going to take it easy and be on the dock this weekend. I don't want to double my profits this year. I've dealt with money managers all that time, both buy side, for investing in companies and me putting my money to work. I have never met a money manager who says, I'm happy to be third quartile this year rather than first quartile because the fishing's good.
Yeah.
And the fact of that is
nobody's sitting back on their laurels.
Every businessman has this nose that they're sniffing for money and they're sniffing how to make money. That's the game. Everybody does that all day, every day. And for somebody who's been fundamentally a career civil servant and to make these broad articulations, who's never gone out and got a purchase order and traded Canadian goods globally, that actually means that he doesn't understand the nature of how capital goes in the productivity function.
Well, he's also shuffling off responsibility.
Well, the issue is if you don't have the IP, and you don't have control of the AI function, if you put the money in that accrues to the owner of that.
Right.
So it's like you building a house on land you don't own.
Yeah.
And we had an economic policy of never owning the land underneath it. So, and then he says, well, look, if you build a house on that, it's going to be a great, big, beautiful rich hotel. Don't be so lazy. Where the business kind of goes, I know I don't own the land. I don't know how to own that land.
Yeah.
I don't have a public policy that supports me there. But I'm sure not going to turn my dollar into 10 cents. Now, the public investments have always turned a dollar into 10 cents, but that's taxpayer money. But if a businessman does that, they're quickly bankrupt and out of the business. So his articulation and framing of we just have to spend more money longer, which is Einstein's definition of insanity, I think is misplaced because he's not resolving the core issue, which is what
Einstein's definition of insanity.
I think is
doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results.
Place because he's not resolving the core issue, which is what creates a good investment opportunity in an era of intangibles. And so I look at his prescriptions and you have, it's important to understand this for people is that he's a macroeconomist and a central banker. And that's a very narrow function. Your responsibility is price stability of the money systems, banking stability and the regulatory compliance of the payment systems. You operate in a narrow but important realm. But your involvement with the firm and the productivity that's a very distant part. It seems similar.
Right, so his expertise doesn't
translate. The metaphor I could say is it's like he's a leading dermatologist.
Yeah.
He's a doctor.
Yeah.
And he said, well, I'm a doctor. I'm going to do neurosurgery because that's a doctor. And the brain is very close to the face, which has got skin. So I can do this. And in fact, these are very, very different realms that have very different levels of expertise. But there seems to be a comfort.
I would not want a dermatologist giving me brain surgery. that was a horrible, I knew where he was going with it, but that was a horrible setup.
And a cavalierness way into realms that Canada's performed poorly. He has been part of a scene that's performed, an architect of a scene that's performed poorly, and he has no expertise in this realm and no experience. He didn't need to have it as a central banker, but he's availing it as if he does.
Yeah, well, that was one of my impressions in reading the book.
And it makes me nervous because his thinking to me is just a more efficient Trudeau.
Yes, much more efficient.
More professional.
Much broader scale, with much better international connections.
Yeah, but I think efficient in this direction.
Yeah.
Given what's happened to Canada.
Yeah. Faster and faster.
And we're last place already. below last place.
Yeah, well, Canadians, I can understand the conundrum
51st
because
state.
Carney has international imprimatur because he was governor of the Bank of England, and it's very easy, and I can understand it for people to think, well, he's been successful in two complex jobs, and one of them was outside of Canada.
It's the same job. It's the same job.
Yeah, fair enough. But it's easy for people to presume that makes him a master of financial strategy in all dimensions when they don't know the nuances.
He's a dermatologist, and we need a neurosurgeon. And they're both on the head, but they're different, and they're really different.
Yeah.
I tell you,
That's a scary thing to hear him compare it to that, because if that's the case, it sounds like Mark Carney has some money issues, right? And not that he is not good with it. Although I have seen some news outlets report that when he was head of the bank in England, that he wasn't very good at it. So, I mean, that's not good, because you have Jordan Peterson and James Basile already saying he has a very narrow field of expertise, and then he wasn't even good at that. So that would be worrisome for me, especially it being surrounded around money. And for the best thing that they can, for the best title they can attribute to him is a better Trudeau. That would be concerning for me. So I want to go to something that, do I have it here? Carney shocking. No, I don't. But that was something I wanted to, I'm going to play for you guys as well. But I'm going to go to something else, because based on what they talked about here, they talked a lot about the economy and Carney's view about spending money, staying green the way Trudeau was, and how that's not going to work for Canada because the trajectory Canada has already been on. This sounds so much like America, it's literally like deja vu, right? Okay, so in this, I'm going to find this clip for you guys real quick, because I want you guys to listen to what James Basile tells Jordan Peterson Canada will be like if it stays on the trajectory that it's currently on right now. And I thought it was, I'm not gonna lie to you guys, it was mind-blowing to me, because if you know any history about Canada and America, like as allies, there were of course points in history that weren't that far ago where Canada was actually exceeding and being more successful in America as a whole. So not like just one particular sector, but they were doing substantially well for themselves as a country. It hasn't been like that lately. And James puts it this way. He said, if we stay on the trajectory that we're on in about 5-10 years, because Jordan Peterson gives him a range, he says Canada will be, what did he call it? Puerto Rico with a passport. I'm like, I don't even know how to take that, because I have family in Puerto Rico, but at the same time I do, because I have family in Puerto Rico. And I was like, wow, like that. So that's where he sees the trajectory of this thing going. So let's take a look at this. First, we're going to look at this clip and then one other one.
You think if we don't wake up and we look out 10 years, what's the difference between Canada and the US economically?
Well, as I've said, rhetorically, we become Puerto Rico without a passport. We'll be very poor in terms of quality of life and what we can buy, and no political representation, no clout. And we have a beautiful country that both you and I love, but it's an expensive country. So if you don't have the prosperity, you can't pay for the health care, the state public safety, the social services, the heat, all the
transportation,
things, all the things that we value being a prosperous, sophisticated country. And we've seen those come under stress in this last era.
Okay, so let's detail out that.
So it's expensive. It hurts a lot when we don't do well in this.
Right, okay, so our housing is prohibitively expensive.
Yeah.
Not only in absolute sense, but also in comparison to the Americans. Our healthcare system is under terrible stress. The same can be said for the education system. Where else do you see? Even Ontario now, which was Canada's richest province, is poorer in terms of per capita GDP than Mississippi, which is the Americans' most poverty-stricken state. And we're on a downhill trend. Yes, that's all correct.
Yeah, and
I thought that was wild. When Jordan Peterson said that Ontario, which at one point was Canada's most richest area is now poorer than Mississippi, I was like, oh my goodness. I was like, oh my goodness, that's not good at all. What you got for me, Jay? Canada generally ranks higher than the United States, with Canada often cited as having a higher percentage of adults with at least an undergraduate degree. Yeah, that's a fact. I was looking all of that up, and that's why I said it, because a lot of Americans, you know, you guys know this, Americans have a big ego. So they're like, there's no way Canada's ever been ahead of us. No, there's a way. It's actually a fact. And and that's why it's so nauseating to me to see the way things are going now.
And food bank lines have doubled, and these are terrible consequences of economic policy and attention. Yeah, it really hits home.
Okay, now, so what did Canada do wrong in the aftermath of these agreements that other countries did right? You related a anecdote to me earlier this week. Some gentleman you were talking to talked about his international experience with committees dealing with IP ownership.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and in the United States, they have the White House has an Office of IP, it has an IP caucus, and they have. And he said he runs a global international IP association that everybody knows.
Right, so that's dealing with ownership of these.
Yeah, and he says all these other countries have IP attachés, but he never comes across an IP attaché of Canada.
Right, so the Americans have a council of businessmen and intellectual property specialists. I presume that's tech people and lawyers who do nothing.
Pharmaceutical and Hollywood and agriculture and finance, it's every sector is an IP business.
Right, and all they do is concentrate on analyzing the ownership structure of abstracted property and
changing it to their favor.
Right, informing the government and legislating and negotiating so that
and then
that works
inserting it into quote-unquote trade agreements that don't say trade. You can look at the million words of the USMCA, you will not find the words free trade in it, but they use them as instruments of regulatory remote control to extract the rentier economy to their home country's benefit.
Okay, USMCA, detail that.
That's the Canada's trade agreement signed under Trump 6-7 years ago.
Right, and that's trumpeted often as, so to speak, as a free trade agreement, but you say in a million words, there's no reference to free trade, and what you're pointing out is that it's not a free trade agreement as conceptualized by people who are thinking about a resource-based economy. It's a protracted argument about who owns what virtual property to whose advantage. And we're losing that.
Right.
We don't even know the battle exists.
It's an instrument for regulatory remote control. Yes.
Okay, tell me what that means, regulatory remote control.
They set the rules for how we manage our IP systems, regulate our healthcare, put in standards, how we manage how we do our macroeconomic policies, who we can do trade agreements with.
It's a form of legislative control over the entire Canadian economy.
Yeah, it's a seeding of democracy, for sure. And it also had a provision to sunset it in 6.5 years, which created a chronic instability, which has come home at this time, literally. And I was trying to explain that this is actually a ticking time bomb for Canada.
What do you mean you were trying to explain?
I was writing and articulating that if you read the agreement, it's none of the celebration that's happening in the economic discourse in the media of the country, that this is going to erode our prosperity, which has happened, and it's going to come back with a bomb to supersize the erosion of that.
Well, you have to read the agreement, and you have to understand it.
Yeah, but I read agreements for a living. That's what I do all day. These are legal economic contracts. That's what you do.
Okay, so let me drill down.
That's what I do.
Tell me, yeah, well, that's why I'm talking to you, because we can benefit from the fact that you do that. So I'm going to take a concrete example because I think those are helpful for explaining. I know that you tell me if this is a relevant one, and if it isn't, we'll bring up one that's relevant. I want you to explain to people using an example in a given corporate domain of how the American advantage in control of such things has worked to Canada's detriment. Now, one of the battles you fought, I know, was with the smart city folks.
Google.
Is that a good example of?
Yeah.
Okay, so let's delve into that a little bit to make it concrete.
Yeah, but what's interesting about that is that was our government invited Google to privatize our largest city, government of our largest city. under the Google Sidewalk Labs.
Right. And that was trumpeted as a triumph of negotiation for Canada and an immense economic opportunity.
By the Prime Minister's office, yeah.
Right. You weren't happy with that, and it didn't happen. And so it's not obvious why you weren't happy with that. I mean, because it came packaged in a pretty nice, shiny box. We'll have smart cities, we'll have much more effective information flow.
There's a catch to that
We're
stuff.
leaping into the 21st century. Canada will be at the forefront of this. Your objection, as I understood it, was, yeah, but Google will own all the data pertaining to all the behavior of everyone who lives in a city like that.
Yeah,
And
that's
that
crazy.
there's immense economic value in that, but also the danger of a kind of totalizing legislative and monitoring control. Yes, is that?
Yeah. Can I wind this back and walk into it? So you ask we talked about Canada's original sin and how we got there. So in 1989, and I will work into this because you see the original sin. In 1989, we signed the original Canada-US Free Trade Agreement. And that was liberalizing all these things that later
That was leg one.
That was leg one. And then because of that, all Canada has to do is take its hands off everything forever and do nothing. And the smartest person in the room is the one that builds no capacity and doesn't do anything.
Right, so you could think about that as the libertarian dream, but also the libertarian abdication of responsibility, both at the same time. Now,
that was Canada's economic orthodoxy.
And maybe there was some value in that orthodoxy when we were fundamentally a resource and leg one economy.
And it's part of one leg. It's necessary but not sufficient.
Okay. So, even with regard to that leg.
Yeah, no, the production
certainly
economy
not sufficient
certainly.
in knowledge economy.
So then what happened was, we had an economic thinking capacity in the country called an economic council, which was the equivalent of some of these sophisticated realms in the United States, these IP offices. They have trade advisory committee. You know, the U.S. has 50-year-old, if you go to the U.S. Trade Representative and search advisory committees, they have 26 advisory committees, 700 experts, been together for 50 years. Right. Tremendous insertion of sophistication.
Right, and these are smart, dedicated, patriotic people, right. And they're pushing their country's interest.
And
some of them. A lot of them were stealing, but, you know, we know that now thanks to Elon.
Not all that down in Canada. Because you don't need to do anything, you don't need to know anything, you just have to cut taxes, cut regulations, get out of the way, which is the true efficient nature of leg one.
Yeah.
But when you make yourself blind, you're not able to see this leg two come along because you're done.
Right, and it's leg two that happens to be kicking the hell out of us at the moment, say in the last 2 months.
Right. So what happened was, so this was around 92, we shut down our economic council to save money. Mm-hmm. So it's
now the people.
It's like taking the instruments off the airplane to save money.
Right.
Because you don't need instruments anymore.
Right. So the people with knowledge on the ground, and that would be people like you who could have informed our political leaders with regard to the policies necessary to protect intellectual property, for example, virtualized property. There's no council to do that now. There's no communication network set up to focus on that.
And there's no interest. There's no interest.
Right, so even worse.
It's we know everything. Knowledge is, we have all the knowledge we ever need.
Yeah, and this is why somebody like Carney is concerning for me, for Canada. So they also have Pierre in here, and I'm going to jump to him because I'm not going to cover the whole thing. I want you guys to go to Jordan Peterson's channel and actually watch it because it really was a great interview. Like, I can literally sit here with you guys and get lost in it, but then, you know, my wife's going to kill me because I've been on live a long time, so I got to hurry up. But I'm going to go over here to where it talks about Pierre being imminent. I just want you guys to hear what Jordan and James are going to talk about regarding Pierre, because we've heard, you know, some things about liberals in Canada and a little bit of history. So I just want to jump because I was actually happy that they brought him up in this conversation and they waited towards the end. So let's see what they say here about him.
All right, let's turn our attention as we're exhausting our time on the YouTube side. Let's turn our attention to the person who's the major contender for the position of Prime Minister at the moment, and that would be Poilievre. Now, you already said, and the Conservatives, you already said that you're stringently and consciously nonpartisan, not only in your attitudes, but also in your financing. And so we're presuming that you're attempting to evaluate both of these men and their ideas at the realm of competence and idea. So tell me about Poilievre. You've had some interaction with him. You've talked to some of his advisors about the issues that we've been describing. Tell me what you're concluding, what you're seeing.
Well, when I wrote that piece about we're all economic nationalists now, that was really a word to the neocons. That if you're a Friedmanite, then be a Friedmanite. Adjust to the facts on the ground. And I've recently heard some things that are encouraging that seem like the emergence of, and Mr. Poilievre does not owe us a full campaign yet because the campaign has not started. So my fulsome evaluation is to be done. But I think Carney's played his cards because he's in a campaign, right?
Well,
he's written a book and he's done a campaign. So I assume that's his playbook. And Mr. Poilievre is imminent, if there's an election imminent, which I think there is. But he's done some green shoots, which intrigued me. He recently said, we need to take back control of our economy. We need to be sovereign, secure, and prosperous, or something like that. But the fact that the government has a role of taking back control of our destiny and our security and our sovereignty and our prosperity and our economic entity, not as protectionism, but to make us strong for a dangerous world and to make our companies strong going out to the world. Well, that's interesting. And then he has.
Well, and you see this as something of a radical departure from Canadian political maneuvering on both sides of the aisle over the last 30 years.
He's introducing the second leg. And then what I've heard, for the first time in 30 years, he has an industry critic named Rick Perkins who has said, we need to own our ideas, we need to control our data to build our companies. And nobody has said that. It was an interview about a month ago, and I'm like, oh, where'd that come from? And then he's had...
So where did it come from?
I think they're thinking. I think they're trying to think. They're trying to realize that there's two legs here. His trade critic, Ryan Williams, has been calling for updated trade strategies where we actually figure out how to project Canadian interests in these games where there's strategic behavior by nation states, which is encouraging because we should have had it 30 years ago. Nice to start now. Michelle Rempel's been talking about updated competition strategies where you don't just throw it as one bucket. You need to compete in domestic services more, but you need to support our global traders more. So one is a supporting them into the world. One is to compete away monopoly rents that hurt consumers. Again, that distinction has not been done for 30 years.
Yep.
And I've heard Michelle Rempel and Adam Chambers talk about helping Canadian companies grow for the benefit and building more capacity in the civil service to deal with this change. So I see these as green shoots in what seems to be a loosely emerging Poilievre doctrine. We see the Carney doctrine. The green shoots
We
seem
know the
right.
Carney doctrine.
Yeah, we do, yeah.
Like, Values is a rather thorough book for all its failings.
Yeah.
People tend to do what they say they're going to do. So that's laid out. You see the emergence of something approximating a Poilievre doctrine.
A two-legged race, and if we don't have a two-legged strategy, we will be subordinated, Puerto Rico without a passport. If we do have it, then the question is, are we effective in the capacity building of the political class and the civil service to actually perform while we've been atrophied in this realm for the better part of 30 years.
Okay.
Yeah. If you guys pick the right person, you can be. And this is where I saw so much congruence because, the things that he's saying, that Pierre is saying, these were some of the things where people were like, oh my goodness, like some of the things President Trump wants to do, we haven't heard politicians talk about this in 25 years. We've never heard a politician say this. We've never seen a politician be willing to do something like this. And even as critical as Jim Basile can be, because we could see that he likes some of the things that Pierre is saying or throwing out there, but I like that he's skeptical, right? Like he's not gonna just jump in to like any one basket. He's still kind of staying in the background, observing them both. But like Jordan Peterson said, like we know Carney's playbook. Like we've known it for a long time because he was part of Trudeau's administration. So I really encourage you guys, especially you guys that are Canadian, my Canadian friends and family, go watch this interview with Jordan Peterson and Jim Basile, because a lot of people loved it. I think right now, he just did it 4 days ago, so it's at 287K, but it has 7.3 thousand likes, and there's a lot of commentary under it saying like, you know, this was really eye-opening for me. I never thought about looking at it this way. So I would definitely tell you guys to go check that out, because, you know, with you guys having your election coming up and you having to choose, I believe, what does Mark Carney have, like 120 days? That's like since he first got sworn in. So I encourage you guys to listen to it, because it sucks. Like sometimes we go through this in America and people are like, I'm not voting for either one of them. And honestly, I don't think that that's the best approach either. You know, I can grab this whether I'm taking it from the Bible or I'm taking it just from the fact that I've served the country. But if it's your duty to vote, you know, then vote. You know, if that's your duty to vote, then you vote. If this is something that the country says that it's a duty of ours, so we take care of it and we actually vote. I actually advise strictly against somebody not voting, because I was in a family that did that for many years. I was around friends that did that for many years. And just to think that just what black and brown people in America specifically had to go to just to be able to get the ability to vote, and we won't take the time to learn about our politicians, where they're coming from, what are their morals and ethics, do we align with them or not, and we're just gonna, if we do vote, it's just gonna be Democrat because, you know, my dad did it, or no, you know, that's one reason why I say all of the time my channel exists. I don't want people to go to the polls ignorant. That's not what I want. My family is a very mixed family, so we have more than one race within my family, but it doesn't matter. As a whole, they're not interested in politics, period. And that's not just my family. I know a lot of black and brown people like that. I even have a lot of my white friends, they're not that into it. Like a lot of my white friends, I know more politics than them, because some of them, they're just not interested in it, or they're just like, man, that stuff is like too complicated, or because as Christians we can sometimes we can be overzealous. They're like, the politics are the devil, and it's like, no, right? Like people ask Jesus about politics. We're not going to treat politics like they're the devil. The devil doesn't get politics. Now he might have some people in politics, but he's not going to get the whole category of politics. So not switching gears too much, guys, this gentleman here, I know he's in Canada. His YouTube channel is called The Simple Investor. He has 29.8K thousand subscribers, and I think he does a great job at covering things that happen behind the scenes politically in Canada that don't sit well with the people. And this is why I actually like this guy. He sounds like I guess you could say in America he might be not as big, but he might be our Tucker Carlson, you know, maybe even a Theo Vaughn or something like that. But I mean, his channel definitely is going to continue to grow. He's already at a great amount, but I love his presentation. Like he kind of does it like he's in a boardroom. And the reason why I chose this channel is because I was looking for somebody that was willing to be transparent about what actually happened in Canada. Like, how did Carney get in place, right? Like, because at one point, being in America, I'm looking at this and I'm like, oh, like, did they have the election and I like missed something? Or like, was he like voted in? Like, did they cancel it and do something illegal? Like, what happened? And this guy actually does a great job at explaining to us what exactly happened and how Mark Carney got where he is. And another person that feels like Mark Carney would not be the greatest pick for Prime Minister of Canada. I'm playing this stuff along with the things I normally react to, because like I said, Canada is the country that is my second most watched country on my channel. I care about Canadian politics. I try to follow the politics of Germany as well. But the reason why Canada is so interesting to me right now personally is because they seem like for the last couple of years they've been very congruent with America and what their economy has dealt with. And because of that reason, I'm paying attention to their government like I paid attention to our government to see, right? Are you guys being honest with the people? Or are you trying to pull, a sheet over the people's eyes? Are you being transparent? Or are you just telling the people what you want to know? Because that's actually what America got sick of. And even though some Americans are having amnesia, some Americans are having temper tantrums because they're mad at Elon and they think President Trump is letting Elon run the country. Listen, all of this is madness. Like, that doesn't happen in America, okay? Just because the president takes a picture with someone in the Oval Office and even is having the guy at some of his campaign rallies when he's campaigning for president, it doesn't mean that he's secretly at 5 o'clock handing the presidency over to that person and American people don't know about it. It doesn't work like that, okay? So I think that's just, when you guys see things like that, that's just people having an emotional response. At the end of the day, most Americans didn't even know where their taxpayer dollars were going. They get mad because Elon or Doge people tell them where it's going. They post it on Doge, line for line, total transparency. This is where this went, this is where that went. And you have the American people still like, no, we're going to burn down all your car dealerships and we want to kill Elon. Listen, you're not going to be able to make everybody happy, and politics can suck sometimes, but we have to pick the greater of what I say sometimes are two evils, right? And you got to pick. You don't want to not vote, you know what I mean? And it's like, well, I'm just one vote. Well, you don't know how many people are going to vote with you, so you don't want to be the one to not vote, and not handle your duty as a citizen of your country, and just let anybody, just take the prime minister position, or take the White House. Like, we don't want things like that. So we're going to take a look at this gentleman explain to us what exactly happened and how Mark Carney ended up where he's at today in Canada.
How do you feel about your new prime minister who wasn't elected? Before everybody gets their shorts in a knot,
let me go back just in case I started too soon.
So, Canada, how do you feel about your new prime minister who wasn't elected? Before everybody gets their shorts in a knot, let's just understand how this came about. So, Prime Minister Trudeau decides to prorogue the government, tells everybody he's going to find a new leader for the party. What's he do? Yeah, they turn around, they have kind of a mock election. Carney wins, Trudeau steps down, Carney steps in, and all of a sudden we've got an unelected prime minister running the country. Now,
America, that sound familiar? America, that sound familiar? America, does that sound familiar? She didn't make it to the presidency, right? But how'd she end up running? Do we remember that? Did we vote for Kamala Harris to be running against Donald Trump? Was there any other candidates put out that, we could choose from? Like, historically, America would do? Did that happen this time? No, it actually didn't, right? It didn't. Actually, we saw President Joe Biden go into the debate with Trump, do really bad, watch the Democrats have a meltdown, and then next thing you know, Kamala Harris was the new candidate. It's amazing. Like, the things that I'm seeing happening, this stuff is like scary close, guys. You guys in Canada, I hope you guys are paying attention to this because I'm only putting this stuff out there for you guys to see it.
the country. Now, again, there was no federal election, okay? So Canadians didn't get to vote, just the Liberal Party members turned around and made him the leader, which then subsequently he becomes the Prime Minister. So what does he do his first few days in power? Well, you know what? Instead of actually dealing with the things at home against our actual borders, the ones that we're joined with, he turns around and runs off to the EU because this is what he's notorious for doing. In fact, he barely has a residence in Canada, really hasn't lived here in a decade, even though he's been Trudeau's, advisor. So yeah, Trudeau's gone, but Carney is...
Which, that's wild. I didn't know that. You guys know that? You guys knew that? If I have anybody in here from Canada, I didn't know that. Why would Mark Carney be your prime minister and he doesn't live there? Dude, if there's any truth to this type of stuff, I hope you guys are paying attention. That is wild. You cannot live in Europe and be the president of the United States. Okay, so if he is, how does this work for you guys? If he lives somewhere in Europe does that count? Because Canada is like in North America, right? So like, can he do that? Because from what I understand, he has like properties in other places, and like this gentleman just said, he hasn't lived in Canada in 10 years. So I'm totally confused as to how he hasn't lived there for a decade, but he's the prime minister.
And Trudeau's, advisor. So yeah, Trudeau's gone, but Carney, is he any better? No, definitely not. In fact, a lot of the stuff that we're seeing out of this guy just goes to show you why everybody has been warning us around the world about his intentions. Let's take a look at what he does and speaks when he's in France.
With you, Mr. President, I want to ensure that France and the whole of Europe.
This is Mark Carney right here from Canada, and this is Emmanuel Macron from France. I think he's from France. I'm pretty sure.
Works enthusiastically
I'm tired, guys.
with Canada, the most European of non-European countries.
Wow, that's kind of a cool definition. We are the most European of non-European. Hey, what continent are we on? Oh, hang on, let me check a map. That's right, North America. Gee, Mr. Carney, do you forget what we are? We're North American. Yeah, a lot of people don't like the word American, but that's the truth. Canada's in North America, and you are so quick to sell out Canada to, I don't know, the people that might be patting your pocket. You're so quick to sell out Canada to everybody else. It's unbelievable. Right now, big picture stuff, shouldn't you be here in Canada? Forget about, increasing, your carbon footprint as you do daily. How about the fact that you should be addressing, instead of shooting your mouth off about President Trump, why not pick up the phone and say, let's have a conversation? But you're so quick to sit there and say, tariff for tariff. Oh, we're going to fight them, and we're going to get Europe on our side. You know what? They can't do anything to help us. They're across the pond. They can't do anything. And quite frankly, you're trying to fight the wrong fight. But here's one of the things that people want to know, Mr. Carney. Why don't you tell us really, where is all your wealth? As the Prime Minister of Canada, you're supposed to, divulge everything about yourself financially. And right now, you're kind of like an interim Prime Minister. So really, what are you trying to do?
That those assets should be publicly disclosed within 120 days, which means you'll campaign in a coming federal election, most likely within the next 120 days, and are serving as Prime Minister now, with Canadians not being aware of what potential conflicts of interest
What possible conflict could you have? Stephanie, I'm complying with the rules. I'm complying with the rules in advance. Wow.
Wow. What a condescending, gaslighting, narcissistic pig.
Wow. Now, see, this is what it was. Things like this, this right here. This is what made him start to look sus to me. And it wasn't just only this, but like she brings up, his assets. You have 120 days, and then he just gets so offensive right away, and he's just like, I don't understand what Stephanie. What am I not doing? Like, I'm already following the rules, and I'm just like, oh, hold on there, buddy. You're a little excited there, huh? Like, why? It's just a question from a reporter about what? Your assets? Like, honesty, transparency? Why are we reacting like that? And that's why I'm like, you see, America knew about Trump. We even knew about his charges. Like, his money is old news. America knew that Trump had money. But we knew this stuff about our president. There's no way that this person should have been able to be the prime minister of Canada, and the people don't even know something as simple as that. It wasn't an emergency situation. Justin Trudeau stepped down. So it's not like Mark Carney hasn't had the time to step out and just be transparent with the Canadian people. All the way over here from America, I'm just saying, Mark Carney, he's giving Joe Biden vibes, guys.
What are you trying to do?
That those assets should be publicly disclosed within 120 days, which means you'll campaign in a coming federal election, most likely within the next 120 days, and are serving as Prime Minister now, with Canadians not being aware of what potential conflicts of interest
What possible conflict would you have? Stephanie.
See, with Canadians not being aware of some conflicts of interest you may have, and he said, what conflicts of interest might I have, Stephanie? She just said it. The Canadian people are not aware of some conflicts of interest you might have. Okay, so well, how does America handle this? Well, we've already been over this, right? People have asked President Trump, what do you know? This same exact question, and President Trump and Elon gave an answer. If Elon Musk is dealing with anything that is of any type of conflict of interest, because Elon Musk owns businesses, he has a lot of money as well, then he will withdraw himself from those positions so that he can continue in his government findings because he wants to keep helping President Trump. It's not hard to answer that question. Why won't Mark Carney answer that question?
Of what potential conflicts of interest you
What
saw to
possible
avoid.
conflict would you have, Stephanie? Stephanie,
How would she
I'm
know if the
I'm
Canadian
complying with
people
the rules
don't
of
know?
defense.
Wow. What a condescending, gaslighting, narcissistic pig. You know, like, this guy has no experience in politics, being a leader. Yeah, people can talk about, Brookfield Asset Management, and you know what? By the way, he was never voted in. They just brought him in and turned around to run the thing. So,
and from what I understand, he didn't run things well there either. So he was just brought in to run things, and a lot of people was like, he didn't do great when he was was he the owner? Not the owner. Was he the president, or like he was some type of leader of a bank? I think they said out in England, and they were like, dude, he was horrible even when he was at the bank.
when you take a look at this guy, he doesn't want to disclose his billions in assets and who he's truly working for. The whole carbon footprint Carney is just front and center right now. In fact, this was brought up as well.
Guess what one of the requirements is to diversify trade to the European Union? Guess what one of the requirements is to diversify trade to the United Kingdom? Guess what one of the requirements will be to diversify trade to emerging Asia? Is to have a form of price on carbon. So we are able to think one step ahead.
One step ahead. Are you kidding me? Take your foot off of Canadians' throats. You are unbelievable. You sit there and say, okay, and by the way, that whole mockery situation where you sat there and you signed that piece of paper saying I'm canceling the card.
He said a tax on carbon, right? Did he say that?
Union. Guess what one of the requirements is to diversify trade to the United Kingdom? Guess what one of the requirements will be to diversify trade to emerging Asia? Is to have a form of price on carbon. So we are able to think one step ahead.
Price on carbon. I watched Pierre talk about this, and Pierre said that he said this plan that Carney has, and I guess Trudeau had the same plan. He said this plan is going to basically be the end of Canada. So whatever that plan is, where he's talking about some form of price on carbon, and he wants to write up some type of law for it, because I've been seeing things about that. Yeah, Pierre, like, he believes thoroughly that this is going to be a very big mistake and a bad move for Canada. You guys should pay attention to that. There were a couple of things while President Trump was campaigning that he said would be bad for America if it continued. And there were also a couple of things that he said that he wanted to make known to the American people that were being kept from them. So you guys need to keep an eye on things like that when someone is hesitant to not be transparent, but they're trying to lead an entire country. I think that's a problem. We're not saying that the person has to tell every single thing, but again, the President of the United States, we usually know how much money they make before they become the President of the United States, what they've been up to, where they've been at, where they've made their money from. We're usually made privy to those things. So if Canadian people can't even know something like that about their Prime Minister, I don't think that should be the Prime Minister.
One step ahead. Are you kidding me? Take your foot off of Canadians' throats. You are unbelievable. You sit there and say, okay, and by the way, that whole mockery situation where you sat there and you signed that piece of paper saying I'm canceling the carbon tax, you're full of shit. You know why? That's not how Canadian politics work. In other words, you have to take it to the Governor General to have it, initialed and done. And so that little thing, you mock Trump for the way he handles things.
Okay, so I'm not gonna lie, to his defense, I can kind of defend him here because Pierre Poilievre brought this up too when he was talking about it on his YouTube channel, and he's been out there, talking to the people. He's got his construction hat on, his vest, his boots, his glasses, out there doing some of the same things that President Trump did to get elected. Pierre said this. He said that when this gentleman says that he signed something saying that he's throwing the carbon tax out the window, and then he just said that's BS. The reason why I can probably say he's right there is because Pierre said this, and he said it's a very old political trick. He said, up front and while you're campaigning, you throw the tax out and you say that, there's not going to be like any tax on this or I'm going to get rid of the tax on that. He's like, and then when you win the election, you bring the tax back, but you bring it back even worse than it was before. He's like, it's one of the oldest tactics in the book, and Carney's not going to get rid of that tax. He's saying he's going to get rid of it right now, and then when he wins, you watch what happens to Canada. Listen, when Pierre put that out there, I was like, oh man, like this guy, Canada needs to watch out for this guy.
Little thing, you mock Trump for the way he handles things, except he has authorization to do it. You don't. So you know what? Big picture, everybody's sitting there saying, bait and switch. Well, this guy is by far the biggest bait and switch Canada will ever feel. So how are we going to get through it? You know what? I'd like to know when he's going to call an election. We're not going to get an answer out of that. He's going to sit there and he's made it very clear what he wants to do. When we talk about housing in Canada, one of my favorite topics is the fact that he has indicated that he believes that, and he's been talking to people in BC, he should get foreign investors back into the real estate market in Canada. Well, Mr. Carney, just so you know, that means that you are going to have to change the current rules because foreign investors are not allowed to buy real estate right now here in Canada. And then he's sitting...
It's like that in a lot of countries too. In some other countries it's like that. I was looking at Thailand, and like in Thailand, if you're not a citizen, like you can rent a condo, but you can't purchase real estate until you have dual citizenship if you're from somewhere else, and that takes about 3 years. So literally, they'll let you go out there right now in Thailand and you can rent a condo, but like Canada, you're not allowed to buy real estate.
And they're saying, well, what we're going to do is we're going to back it up with CMHC. So, you know what? Canadians' money are going to ensure foreign investments money, providing they leave their properties as rentals. There's a lot better solutions there, Mark. You should be focusing on Canadians first. Hey, how about you offer Canadians the same deal? Oh, that's right. You'd rather take a look at the foreigners, the people that you're affiliated with. Well, Mark, you know what?
I'm telling you guys, this is giving deja vu. This is giving deja vu. Just like Joe Biden and Kamala, I'm talking about flying in droves of people to the United States because looking at their foreign constituents.
Clearly, you haven't been Canadian for a long time. The fact that you have been not even elected, put into the position of being our Prime Minister, you've got a lot to prove. I highly doubt you're going to do it. But as I wrap everything up, as Canadians, one of the most important things for us to do is watch out for our fellow Canadians, not like him. We got to watch out for our family, not like him. And on top of all of that, we got to watch out for the next generation. One more time, not like him. You know what? Thanks for tuning in. Love to hear your comments. I'm Todd C. Slater. Here's the difference between...
Appreciate you, Todd. We appreciate your content tonight. It was nice to see. Thank you for your transparency, good sir. I like Todd a lot. Yeah, I'm already subscribed to his channel. But you guys go check it out if you can. It's called The Simple Investor. And Todd's a Canadian, so I like to react to him. I think he's fair. And definitely I feel like he leans conservative. So, and not that I'm against liberals, but I just like it because he comes off more balanced than a lot of some of the media I see out there in Canada, especially mainstream media, which no fault to you guys, we have the same problem over here. Okay, guys, so with all of that being said, switching gears completely, we are actually on the last clip of the live. And every time I end my live streams, I end them with a Christian clip. So if you're not a Christian, you're probably going to leave. And that's okay. You can come back tomorrow. I'll be back tomorrow. Saturdays, I usually hop on here around 1 p.m. So I'll try to be on around that time tomorrow. I don't have too much going on, but hey, if the wife calls, then duty calls. But it is what it is. So I end my lives with a Christian clip. Normally, I end it with Cliff. Cliff Buell is a Christian content creator on YouTube. He has 630,000 subscribers, so if you guys want to check his channel out, his name is Cliff, last name Buell. Tonight, we're actually reacting to another Christian content creator who I like, Nicholas Bowling. He does a great job with interacting with people on the streets and asking them if they know about Jesus, if they've ever encountered Jesus, and just kind of having a conversation with them. Super non-confrontational guy, so I like to watch his stuff. Very mild-mannered, you know, never really gets disrespectful with people, and that's the kind of Christian we need out there talking to people, right? Not the kind of Christian this gentleman's about to talk about today. So, I do very different topics. Doesn't matter what it is. It could be on anything you guys want. Some people have shot me something and I've reacted to that. They might say something in the comments and I'll go find it. Sometimes I just kind of go wherever the Lord leads me, and it's never really on purpose. It's just whatever the Lord settles on my spirit. So tonight it says, it freaks out fake Christians. Nicholas Bowling in this clip is at a gay pride parade, and he runs into a man who is dressed in a gay flag, kind of, I guess you could say, man dress type of thing, because it's really long. And he has on like the mask of Satan. And he is talking to Nicholas about why he's choosing to wear that outfit. So let's check it out.
Oh, I'm anti. Literally, we have a bunch of Christians.
Let me put this back, guys.
What inspired you to wear the mask? Oh, I'm anti. Literally, we have a bunch of Christians up here screaming at us. So when they tell everyone they're going to hell.
To hell with judgy Christians. Okay, gotcha. Why Satan?
Because it makes fake Christians freak out.
Oh, gotcha. Fake Christians freak out.
People that are really interested in judging other people, it upsets them. Because they like to tell everyone they're going to hell.
Fake Christians. So,
you know, like somebody who would come to a pride event and then try to push their bullshit on everybody else, kind of like you're doing and your cameraman. It's that kind of shit.
What about real Christians, though?
I haven't met one of you in many years.
Yeah, but you met them before?
I've met a few.
What inspired?
He said, what about real Christians? The guy said, I haven't met one of those in many years, but I have met a few. I think it's interesting, like he's so straightforward. He's like, you know, when people come out here and they tell us that we're all going to hell and they try to push their BS on us, like, you know, you and your cameraman are doing. So I couldn't help but laugh at that. Like, I'm not easily offended, guys, so most of the time stuff like that just cracks me up. I think it's interesting in context because I did watch this. I watched this in a longer frame. Nicholas has it on his channel. You know, the guy goes to say, like, a lot of Christians that he has met in his past, you know, they're not running around the streets saying, I'm a Christian, and how much they hate other people. So he's interacted with Christians like that. I thought it was interesting because the comments said that he condemned himself when he said that he has ran into other Christians, so let's pray for him. I like that. We should pray for him. I think we should pray for any and everybody who's going through anything, but we should definitely pray for someone who's encountered Christians, and they know some real Christians, but there's still a struggle there. Not a gay struggle, but a struggle in the sense where it's like, I want to scare off these fake Christians because basically they keep telling me I'm going to hell. So he feels like he has to wear a sign that says to hell with judgy Christians. Hey, they exist. I'm not going to act like they don't. Zealots exist, right? In many different categories, right? Just like you got overzealous Christians, you have overzealous gamers, you have overzealous porn watchers, you have overzealous thieves, you have overzealous adulterers. So it really fits in every category. So I get what he's saying about the Christians who are saying, you know, you're going to hell, you shouldn't be out there. First of all, right, like, let me just be transparent with you guys. I can promise you, I can reassure you that there's nothing in the Bible where Jesus is telling us to go into the public square and yell at people and tell them that they're going to hell. He actually doesn't tell us to interact with people like that. So if you see a Christian interacting with somebody like that, and you're not a Christian, I'm not going to ask you to have grace because you might struggle with that. But just look at them like they're a normal person. You know, just because people believe in Jesus, they are not perfect, right? They are following the perfect one, but they are not perfect. And really what the goal is not to be better than everyone around you. If someone were to ask me, Q, what's God's ultimate goals? What's God's ultimate goal for a Christian's life? I would say, like, God's ultimate goal for us is to make us holy. Like, we're not holy people, right? Like, God's holy, and he's separate from us. And that's the reason why we can't even be near to him, because we're nothing like him. But because of Jesus and through Jesus Christ, we have access to the Father. And that's the greatest thing about it. And I'm not intimidated by some things that other Christians might be. And it also depends on where someone is at in their faith. Some people who are newer to their faith, they might come off a little brash, you know, they might come off a little overzealous because they're super excited and they want to, like, tell people about Jesus and get the gospel out there. Am I saying it's right? No, but I can appreciate their, you know, their enthusiasm. But sometimes it just takes time with, you know, being with the thing to really understand it. And God is no different. You know, nobody spends a week with God, a year with God, 3 years with God, and they know everything about him. No one spends 40 years with God and knows everything about him. So when you meet Christians that are just trying to, you know, get the word of Jesus out there, hey, if you're not a Christian, just be like, hey, you know what? That's not for me. You know, thank you, and keep it pushing. Now, if you're dealing with a pushy Christian, you know, the easiest way I can tell you to deal with them is just be like, how would Jesus feel that you're bullying me right now? And they'll probably back off. It's not hard to convict a Christian, especially one that has a close relationship with Christ. Because honestly, if a non-believer told me that, I would probably be like, you know what, bro? I don't want no smoke. We're good. I'm sorry. Like, Jesus will find you eventually. So, you know, when we see people doing things like deconstructing their faith, and you have so many Christians like tripping out about that, and like, oh my God, I can't believe this person left the faith and they're deconstructing. And it's like, dude, it's fine. Like, it's fine to tear something down just to build it back up. Like, tear it down, figure out the foundation of it, you know, get all your questions answered, and then, you know, it's all good. Like, Jesus is not intimidated by people deconstructing their faith, so why should I be? And this is what I'm saying, when you guys are dealing with newer people in the faith, or people who might not have a certain type of understanding, or maybe they just haven't been doing it long, you know, just have a little bit of grace for them, because all they're trying to do is get you saved. All they're trying to do is introduce you to Jesus, who they love so much and who saved their life, and they just want to share it. So with that being said, guys, that's why I share this at the end of all of my lives. I appreciate you guys stopping by and being on the corner with me tonight. It was fun hanging out with you guys on a Friday. I was here late tonight, but it's all good. It's about dedication and obedience. So I stream every single day except Sunday. I do not stream on Sundays, but tomorrow I will be back around 1300, which is 1 p.m. in the afternoon. Latest might be 14:30, which is 2:30 in the afternoon. And I'm going to have some good reactions for you guys. I'm excited about tomorrow, and I'm not going to leak any of it. So I'm not even going to stay on that much longer with you guys. So with that being said, you know, you can always fast forward to the end of the live and get the Christian clip to share it with whoever you want, because that's the point of us being here. I'm going to share my faith. I'm not ashamed of Jesus. Nobody should be. So I talk publicly about my faith. I don't care who you are. You can be atheist, agnostic. You're not going to say anything to change me. I'm not going to purposely try to change you. We could talk. We could vibe. Like, it's all good. I usually do politics, but the Lord has convicted me to end my live streams with a Christian clip or some sort of Christian content, so I'm always going to do it. So with that being said, guys, you go and enjoy the rest of your Friday night. I know I will. Take care of yourselves. Be peaceful. Love yourselves. Love one another. Peace.